Good evening and welcome to the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for April 6, 2023. At this time, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Commissioners who are present for this evening's meeting are at City Hall and on Zoom. We also have staff from the city attorney and clerk's offices, as well as the city planning department. If you're joining us on Zoom this evening, we can see that you are here. You may observe the meeting, however, your ability to be seen on screen and talk will be muted. During the public testimony portion of the meeting, you will be unmuted and then be able to comment. Please note that we cannot take questions until the public testimony portion. If you have process questions during the meeting, please email cityclerk@meridiancity.org. They will reply as quickly as possible. With that, let's begin with the roll call. Madam Clerk.
Commissioner Wheeler,
Present.
Commissioner Lorcher, Commissioner Grace,
Here.
Commissioner Rivera.
Here.
Commissioner Stoddard.
Here.
Commissioner Smith,
Here.
Commissioner Seal.
Here. And that is the first time in a long time we've had a full panel. So thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. First item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. The Costco H2023-0007 application has vacated and will be rescheduled for the 4th of May. So if there's anybody here to testify on that application tonight, we will not be taking testimony on it. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Been moved and seconded to adopt the agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is a consent agenda, and we have 4 items on the consent agenda. The first is to approve the minutes of the March 16th, 2023 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. We also have findings of facts, conclusions of law for the conditional use permit for Chipotle, the conditional use permit for the Delano Apartments, and the denial of variance request concerning a proposed addressing change for 2201 East Gala Street by the Orm Family and Implant Dentistry. Can I get a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented? And moved and seconded to adopt the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Okay, at this time, I'd like to explain the public hearing process. We will open each item individually and begin with the staff report. Staff will report their findings on how the item adheres to our comprehensive plan and unified development code. After staff has made their presentation, the applicant will come forward to present their case and respond to staff comments. They will have 15 minutes to do so. After the applicant is finished, we will open the floor to public testimony. Each person will be called on only once during the public testimony. The clerk will call the names individually of those who have signed up on our website or in the back to testify in advance or to testify. You will then be unmuted in Zoom, or you can come to the microphones here in chambers. You'll need to state your name and address for the record, and you will have 3 minutes to address the commission. If you have previously sent pictures or presentation for the meeting, it will be displayed on the screen and you can run the presentation. If you have established that you are speaking on behalf of a larger group like an HOA, where others from that group will yield time to you to speak on their behalf, you will have up to 10 minutes. After all those who have signed up in advance have spoken, we will invite others who may wish to testify. If you wish to speak on the topic, you may come forward in chambers or in the Zoom app, press the raise hand button. Or if you're listening on a phone, please press *9 and wait for your name to be called. If you're listening on multiple devices, such as a computer and a phone, please be sure to mute those extra devices so we do not experience feedback and we can hear you clearly. When you are finished, if the commission does not have questions for you, you will return to your seat in chambers or be muted on Zoom and no longer have the ability to speak. And please remember, we generally do not call you back up a second time. After all testimony has been heard, the applicant will be given another 10 minutes to come back and respond. When the applicant has finished responding to questions and concerns, we will close the public hearing and commissioners will have the opportunity to discuss and hopefully be able to make final decisions or recommendations to City Council as needed. Some other rules of the chamber: please do not cheer, whistle, moan, groan, or otherwise outburst. It's something that we don't like to see here. Let's treat each other with respect and dignity as we move through this. So at this time, I'd like to open the public hearing for item number H2023-0006 for Crawley Park subdivision. And we will begin with staff report.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. The applicant is here to present their application for the Crawley Park subdivision. The applications that were applied for were annexation and zoning, preliminary plat, and alternative compliance. Doesn't require commission action on that one. The size of the site consists of 1.002 acres of land zoned R1 in Ada County, located at 4135 West Cherry Lane. There is no history on the property. The comprehensive plan flume designation is medium density residential. And the summary of the request from the applicant is annexation of 1.002 acres of land with an R8 zoning district, preliminary plat consisting of 5 residential building lots, including 1 existing home to remain and 1 common lot and 3 alternative compliance requests at a gross density of 4.99 units per acre, which is within the desired density range of the medium density residential designation for the Crawley Park subdivision. The proposed development offers lot sizes ranging in size from 4,011 square feet to 5,768 square feet, with the existing home on a 9,744 square foot lot. Single family detached and attached dwellings are listed as a principally permitted use in the R8 zoning district. Future development is subject to the dimensional standards listed in the UDC for the R8 zoning district. An existing home on the property is proposed to remain on lot 1. Block 1 is required to connect to the city water and service within 60 days of becoming available. The outbuilding located on lots 2, 3, and 4, block 1 should be removed with the development of this property. And there were 3 alternative compliances that were applied for. One was for common driveways shall serve a maximum of 4 dwelling units. In no case shall more than 3 dwelling units be located on one side of the driveway. The applicant is proposing 5 dwelling units to take access off the common drive. All 5 dwelling units are also located on one side of the driveway. Based on the analysis, the director is supportive of the request for alternative compliance proposed for the 5 dwelling units to take access off the west side of the common drive. The second alternative compliance was for a parking. The existing home does not meet the required number of off-street parking spaces per the UDC for a 3-bedroom home. 4 parking spaces are required, at least 2 in an enclosed garage. Other spaces may be enclosed, or a minimum of a 20 by 20 foot parking pad. The existing home does not have an enclosed 2-car garage. However, the required number of parking spaces is provided via an existing attached carport and driveway. And based on this analysis, the director is supportive of the request for alternative compliance to the existing carport with the addition of the lattice. Off-street parking for this development is required to be in accordance with the UDC standards for the single-family dwellings based on the number of bedrooms per unit. Staff will confirm compliance with these standards at the time of building permit submittal for each residence. The applicant has provided additional parking, 3 stalls at the end of the common drive on the southeast side of the site for overflow parking. Landscaping, a 25-foot landscape buffer is required along West Cherry Lane in accordance with the UDC. Alternative compliance was applied to this, was requested for the front porch, encroaching from the existing home more than 2 feet into the required landscape buffer. And based on the analysis, the director is supportive of the request for the alternative compliance with staff recommendation to modify a few things on the plans. Access is proposed from West Cherry Lane from a common drive on lot 2, block 1. Direct lot access from West Cherry Lane for lot 1, block 1 is prohibited. Interior lots 3, 4, 5, 6, and block 1 are proposed to take access via the common drive to West Cherry Lane. So this meets the requirements in the UDC. Common open space requirements. There are no common open space requirements for properties less than 5 acres in size. And the building elevations that were submitted demonstrate what future homes in this development will look like. There were variations of 2-story homes with a 2-car garage are proposed. The submitted elevations depict field materials of lap siding, different color accents, roof profiles, and stone, and the final design of the structure is required to comply with the design standards listed in the UDC. These are also pictures up here of the existing house that is to remain, and you can see the carport is enclosed by some lattice and the landscaping in front of the home. There was no written testimony on this, and staff recommends approval of the proposed annexation with the requirement of a development agreement and preliminary plat per the conditions in the staff report. And then staff, that concludes the presentation, and staff stands for any questions.
Thank you very much. Would the applicant like to come forward? Good evening.
Chairman. For the record, Penelope Constantakis representing the applicant, Post Office Box 405, Boise, Idaho 83701. And I'm a bit of a novice when it comes to the PowerPoint, so.
I think you can run it with just the arrows if you need to advance the slides.
I don't. All right, we'll figure it out. Thank you. It's always rewarding to work on a project that checks uncommon boxes. And this one does in fact check some uncommon boxes, as you can see from the two elevations that were shown. This is an old house. It was built in 1938 and it was remodeled in 1958. So it kind of qualifies as a historic structure. And it's quite charming with all the river rock that's on the front porch columns and the fireplace. Even though the door is not centered on the porch, it's a lovely looking home, and it's been fun. The developer spent a lot of time and energy upgrading and dressing up that house so it looked nice. As Stacy stated, the applications before you this evening are for an annexation into the city with a zoning designation of R8 and a preliminary plat for 5 residential lots, 1 existing residence and 4 new ones. Team is especially appreciative of staff's recommendations regarding the common lot and the alternative arrangement. If we can, I don't know how to. Mouse does not seem to be. There you go. Thank you very much. Staff made a recommendation regarding the common lot, which we really appreciate. So to preserve the view of the home, the applicant is interested in doing a picket fence along the boundary between the landscape buffer and the front lot. The green line that you see towards the top is how we're going to change the common lot to accommodate that porch. The red line right below it is a privacy fence that we're proposing. So the site includes a dedicated water line, just the blue line on the left-hand side. It comes down and it turns and goes east, and it's going to feed a fire hydrant for the project. Since it's a dedicated water line, it needs to sit in an easement, which will run along the west property line. We also have on this exhibit the 2 parking spaces that are going to be added to the carport. You can see them in the orange colored box that's below the carport on the south side. As I stated, there'll be 2 fences, the common lot fence and then a closed taller vision fence that will be set back a bit in order to provide some privacy for the patio area that goes along with the front house. The remainder of the site is already fenced. Each of the new residences, 4 in total, and if you could advance that to the parking exhibit, perfect, thank you. Each of the 4 residences, the new ones, will have 2 car garages. They'll also have 2 additional parking spaces. So the red blocks on the top exhibit show you the 20 by 20 pads that will be sitting in front of the garage, which provides us with 4 parking spaces for residents. And then, as Stacy mentioned, down at the bottom in the blue square shows you where the 3 additional guest parking spaces are located. Existing home will be connected to municipal sewer and water with development of the subdivision. The well house is in a small structure that's attached to the existing residence. The residents will be disconnected from the well water and will be using that to irrigate the site. The HOA will, through the CCNRs, have responsibility for maintenance and repair of that well. We don't have any surface water. Stacy's already covered the alternative compliance elements. And I just, again, want to mention that we really appreciate the approval of those alternative compliance applications and the excellent recommendations we received from staff with that regard. We do understand the implications of the non-conforming status of the house, which means that if it's ever modified or added to, it will require a conditional use permit. That was one of the alternative compliance elements in the application, and that's due to the carport as opposed to an enclosed garage. A development agreement is required, as you know, and the team will move forward with that as quickly as staff will allow us to get that done. I would like to address the fourth bullet down on page 6, where it recommends that the utilities go to and through the site to the south. If you would go down one more exhibit, it's this bottom one. Thank you. What you have in front of you now is the top illustration is just the subject site. Below it is what's to the south of our southern boundary, which are 2 platted lots. So there's really nothing to go through to, because there's probably not enough space between those 2 houses to accommodate at least a 20-foot wide easement that would be required for a utility line. So we would ask that maybe that particular item be modified or deleted so that we're not just stubbing a sewer and water line to nowhere. I think that that's pretty much it. In conclusion, I did want to say it's been a lot of fun working on this. I don't often get to work with existing structures that have history and an infill development and trying to package it together in such a way that it serves the community and provides nice homes for people. So, and the assistance we got also included from the engineering staff. So thanks to them all. With that, I would be happy to answer any questions you have.
All right, thank you very much. Commissioners, do we have questions? Commissioner Wheeler, go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a quick question. So do you have any hesitation about the homeowner there, your client there going ahead and connecting to the Meridian City Water when it's made available within the 60 days, or is it just running that stub?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner, no, they'll be hooked up with the subdivision, the site improvements.
Okay.
Yes.
That's it.
Commissioner Orchard?
Mr. Chair, the 2 houses in the back, they're 2 detached buildings, correct?
Yes.
4 families,
Yes, that's correct.
and they'll be ownership, not rentals, correct?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner, that is correct. Those are going to be on platted lots.
And are there backyards at all, or?
Yes, one of the reasons why we wanted to put all of the new residences so that they're facing east and along the common drive, and this was a recommendation we got from Bill, was so that we had backyards matching backyards. So they have backyards on the new residences that abut the backyards of the adjacent properties.
And they're proposed to be 2 stories, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Madam Clerk, do we have anybody signed up to testify on this?
I have 2 names listed, a Sally Butter. Okay, then no, I have no one signed up. I have 2 ladies, but neither of them are checked to
Right.
sign up.
If anybody online wants to.
No, there is no one
No one
online.
online, okay. Anybody in chambers want to testify at all? No? Applicant have anything further to add? Okay, indicating no. Okay, with that, unless there are any further questions for staff or the applicant, I'll take a motion to close the public hearing for item number H 2023-0006.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to close the public hearing for file number H 2023-0006. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, aye. And the motion carries. Public hearing is closed. Would like to jump in first?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Lorcher, go ahead.
this is in my neighborhood. I go up down Cherry Lane every day. And there are two similar infills that have occurred on Cherry Lane in old farmhouse settings like this one. But the difference is that this shares a common driveway with the house in front and then additional ownership in the back of the house. I applaud the developer for keeping the historic house. That's, I think, important for the city of Meridian. But I just wonder if it's a family and have teenagers and they're coming in 2 o'clock in the morning with the radio blasting and coming through the farmhouse first and then to their residence. How can anybody really guarantee there'd be always good neighbors when there's a common drive, especially passing the house? If this were reversed, where the buildings, the ownership buildings were in the front and the private was in the back, it might be a little bit different. But this is a pretty tight space. We're only talking an acre. And even though the backyards abut another backyard, we're talking a very small piece of land with a 6 or 8 foot fence in between. And because there's similar projects on the same street, it's hard to say no. But on the other side, just because it fits doesn't mean it should. I just wonder, I mean, I guess it's up to the people who want to buy that, knowing that there's somebody living in front of them and they have small parcels, and if there's going to be an HOA, they all have to kind of follow it. But this 1 acre parcel to put really 5 families on seems very aggressive. And even though by code they can fit, I struggle with, because you don't know who is going to be ownership there, that would they be all good neighbors and we wouldn't have problems, just the way it's set up. So I'm kind of just struggling with the design. I understand it fits and I understand it meets code, but with the private residence in the front, the historic residence in the front, and having the other ones in the back and having to pass that house every single time, that's my challenge.
Anybody else? I can jump in here. I have a similar struggles. I mean, the one problem that I can see here is basically 1 car or 1 obstruction in the front, and the fire department cannot service this at all. So, I mean, it only takes 1 thing blocking that, and the next thing you know, fire department, ambulance, whatever it is, cannot get back there. So I really struggle with the safety aspect of it. As far as it meeting code, I mean, it's got alternative compliance for 3 things. So, which is not necessarily uncommon for infill properties like this, but I'm kind of on the other side of the historic piece of this. I mean, it's an old house. I don't know what its historic relevance is for Meridian, other than being one of, probably an original house in Meridian. So, I mean, personally, I would have rather that the older house be removed and this, be developed with a little bit more harmony between the dwelling units that are there, so that we don't have to deal with such a small opening. I mean, some of the additional parking that's being done is kind of beyond the parking that's already there, that's temporary. I mean, putting up temporary lattice and calling that a wall is, I'm not quite sure how that one squeaked through, to be honest. I don't agree with that one either, but that's a pretty minor issue. So the biggest issue I have with this is literally the safety piece of it, where there's 1 lane going in there. If that gets blocked, or you need multiple, if you needed multiple fire trucks or ambulance and fire truck, you wouldn't be able to get them in there. Just, it wouldn't fit. And once you get 1 in, you can't put any more in there. And if 1 needs to get out, can't get out. So not sure how to reconcile that.
Mr. Chairman.
Right ahead.
Yeah, I was struggling just conceptually. I kept looking through the materials and trying to find a better depiction of what's going to happen here. And I was really struggling with the concept of that house in front and those, the proposed houses at the back. So I think what that tells me is I'm a little confused by it. And that probably means that I generally, I want to favor things, infill projects like that, like this. And so, but I'm not following this as well. And I probably couldn't have articulated them, but I really echo some of the comments that Commissioner Lorcher made. So, but one question maybe for the commission or maybe the council, are we just at the annexation and zoning stage? So is this subject to some modification, and are we really giving feedback to the applicant for when that occurs? Or are we at a point where we're saying we don't like the proposal? I just want some clarity on that.
I'll let you handle that because you'll say it much better than I do.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I'm not sure about that, but I'll do my best. So I will say that we have two items before the commission. You're in a recommending body on both topics, but is the annexation, and then the second topic is a preliminary plat as well. So you have both those topics before you as a recommending body. And I'll just add on to that in the sense that there was some discussion about whether it meets code and so forth, and that's certainly part of your deliberation here tonight. But obviously, this is an annexation as well, and so there are certain findings required ultimately by the city council in that regard, including that the annexation is in the best interest of the city. And so if the commission doesn't feel that's the case for a variety of reasons, that can certainly be part of your recommendation, would be you don't feel it's in the best interest of the city, and articulate your reasons why. So those are the two, but back to the specific question, those are the two issues before the commission tonight. Would be the annexation issue, a recommendation to the council, the preliminary plat, also listed on the agenda, but not within your purview, is alternative compliance. That's a director decision. But that's a third component to the overall application as well, but not before you tonight.
Thank you for clarifying that. Appreciate it. Commissioner Grace, does that satisfy your question? Okay, perfect. Anybody else want to weigh in on this? Love to hear your opinions. Or we could take a stab at a motion.
Mr. Chair.
Go right ahead.
I think fire would have written off on the alleyway and the access to it. So I think, they would have seen that they would have been okay with that access on it. The density on it is, within the zoning of it. So for just annexation purposes, I'm okay with on the annexation purpose. I too, though, I'm concerned that there will be vehicles that will be parked in that alley street. And then what happens then when there's a need or an injury or hurt or a need for emergency vehicles to be serviced there? There can be ways to put up signs to say no parking, things like this. And that can be in the HOA, that can be put up with signs, what have you. I have a struggle with the density on it myself too. And going back to what council said here about being in the best interest of the city, that many dwellings in 1 acre, that tight with only one access point in and out, that's hard to say okay to. I would be up for not as much density on there just because of the unique fit on an infill project. And that's also what we see sometimes happen with infill projects, is even though they're afforded more based upon zoning, just because of the nature of them, they sometimes go lighter too, even with conditions or adjustments. So I'm fine with it being annexed on it. I'm not in big favor of the way it's platted.
Yeah, and the density, the density of it, if this were 1 acre of 10, the density is fine. In fact, it's kind of what we shoot for, but it's 1 acre of one. And so, and especially the orientation of it where it's, you know, a long, you know, lot that's not very wide where we're trying to, you know, put the house, kind of stack the houses in as they move up towards the Cherry Lane there. It's just, it's a very odd configuration and I struggle with it.
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
In that same note, there is a 20 acre, that'd be massive, 20 square foot or 20 foot long parking area there. Some of even just trucks are even just longer than that. So they would be hanging out into that drive aisle. So that's where I'm just having some logistical issues with it on that side of it.
Yeah, and I always bring up the, you know, the Super Bowl party scenario.
Yeah.
That's one of my famous lines. So, I mean, I don't even want to think about that in here. So it just doesn't work in here at all. So again, one gathering like that creates, I mean, a huge safety issue in this configuration in my mind. So something's going to get blocked. Somebody's going to get blocked in there and then emergency services can't get. So.
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Lorch, go ahead.
to give any feedback to the applicant, I would say in this particular case, they may want to consider removing the historical house as it just doesn't fit to be able to have them all in, you know, in a row. If you go down Pine Street, you can see where there's been infill, where they've had either apartment buildings or duplexes that face either east or west, and so they have the parking out front. And so there's always that kind of extra space, but having the house in the front inhibits that flow in this particular parcel. And even the two similar ones that are in the area, it was part of a kind of a cul-de-sac and somebody had a big property, but they extended it out. So everybody has their own drive aisle and there's two ways, you know, two different ways in and out. So with that in mind, I will make a motion.
Go right ahead.
After considering all staff and applicant and public testimony, I move to recommend denial to the city council for file number H 2023-006 as presented during the hearing of April 6th for the following reasons. Safety because of the narrow lane with only one way in and out, and the best use of the space to hold 5 residences in a small parcel.
And to clarify, the file number is H 2023-0006.
So,
Forgot a zero. Does motion still stand? Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded to deny or recommend denial for file number H 2023-0006 with the aforementioned reasons. All in favor of the denial, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed to the denial, please say nay. Okay, the denial passes. Thank you very much. And with that, I'd like to. Want a second to work on that, Bill? No? Okay. Gotcha. So I'd like to open the public hearing for item number H 2022-0079 for Modern Craftsman at Franklin. And we will begin with staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. The next applications before you are a request for annexation and zoning, conditional use permit, and preliminary plat. There are also concurrent development agreement modification and private street applications, which do not require commission action. This site consists of 11.47 acres of land. It's zoned RUT in Ada County and R15 in the city, located at 4540, 4490, and 4420 West Franklin Road. The western portion of this site at 4540 West Franklin Road was previously annexed into the city with the Compass Charter School East expansion project in zoned R15. The comprehensive plan future land use map designation is medium high density residential in the 10-mile interchange specific area plan. The applicant is requesting a modification to the existing development agreement to remove the property at 4540 West Franklin Road from the agreement for the purpose of including it in the proposed multifamily residential development and the new development agreement associated with the proposed annexation. Again, this application does not require action from the commission, only city council. The applicant is proposing to annex the eastern 2-acre parcel shown on the plan on the east there, consisting of 10.29 acres of land with an R15 medium high density residential zoning district. A multifamily residential development with a mix of housing types is proposed with a gross density of 10.6 units per acre, consistent with the medium high density residential future land use designation in the comprehensive plan. A development agreement is recommended as a provision of annexation that includes the west parcel proposed to be removed from the existing development agreement for the charter school. The plan shown there on the left is the concept plan that's included in the existing development agreement that was approved with the Compass Charter School. A preliminary plat is proposed, shown there on the left, consisting of one building lot and one other lot on 11.47 acres of land in the R15 zoning district. Right-of-way is proposed to be dedicated with the plat for the extension of West Aviator Street, a collector street across the northwest corner of the site in accord with the master street map. Access is proposed via the Collector Street, Aviator, with a driveway access via Franklin Road and Arterial Street along the southern boundary of the site. The driveway is required to be located along the west property line for shared access with the property to the west. Private streets are proposed for internal access and for addressing purposes. Street buffer landscaping is required along the Collector and Arterial Streets in accord with UDC standards. The Purdom Gulch drain lies off-site along the east boundary of the property within a 100-foot wide easement on land owned by Nampa Meridian Irrigation District. The easement encroaches on this property at the northeast corner of the site. You can see the little easement line right here. A conditional use permit is proposed for a multifamily residential development consisting of 122 dwelling units in the R15 zoning district. A mix of housing types with 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units is proposed, consisting of single family residential detached, attached, duplex, and townhomes. Because all units will be on a single lot rather than individual lots, it is considered a multifamily residential development. All units will be for rent rather than individually owned. A minimum of 1.85 acres of qualified open space and 5 site amenities are required to meet the minimum standards. The common open space exhibit submitted with this application included some areas that don't qualify per UDC standards for multifamily residential development. Staff has requested the exhibit be revised prior to the city council hearing in order to determine compliance with the minimum standards. The applicant has noted in their response letter that they are below the minimum standards for qualified open space and that they intend to request alternative compliance to those standards. So that will be submitted prior to the council hearing. Site amenities are proposed as follows from each of the required categories. Quality of life, they're proposing a clubhouse and a dog park. A way station is required to be provided with a dog park. Open space category, they're proposing a community garden. From the recreation category, they're proposing a swimming pool and internal walking trails and a children's play structure. And finally, the multimodal category, they're providing charging stations for electric vehicles, which meet and exceed UDC standards. Off-street parking is proposed for the development that meets and exceeds UDC standards. A minimum of 248 parking spaces are required. A total of 260 are proposed for an extra 12 spaces. Conceptual building elevations were submitted for the proposed structures within the development as shown. Building materials appear to consist of a stucco-like material with wood look lap siding and stone accents with asphalt shingled roofs. Final design should comply with the multifamily design standards listed in the Architectural Standards Manual and the traditional neighborhood design guidelines in the 10-mile interchange specific area plan for the medium high density residential future land use designation. Written testimony was submitted from Shannon Ely, Barron Properties, the applicant's representative. She requests the following changes to the conditions in the staff report. Condition A21C, she requests the proposed private streets are allowed to be in an easement rather than a common lot due to the nature of the project and the civil complexities associated with it and concerns pertaining to spacing and easements. The city code states the preference is that the private streets is in a common lot if the property is being subdivided. It's also staff's and the Ada County Street Name Committee's preference for clarity and accuracy in determining the street alignment and for approval of the street names that are, that they are depicted on the final plat and recorded. Condition A36M, she requested the street names be updated in the condition to reflect those on the most recent plans. Staff has made that change. And then finally, condition 2.9 in section B, they request that condition, it's a public works condition, be replaced. I can read through this if you'd like. Otherwise, I'll just let you view it in the staff report and in the hearing outline, but they have a proposal for replacement of that condition with alternate language, and Public Works has agreed to that alternate language. So staff is on board with that change. Staff is recommending approval with the requirement of a development agreement per the provisions in the staff report, and staff is requesting one condition be added to require a sidewalk along the south side of West Fresh Powder Lane on the north side of the common area where the community center is located for pedestrian connectivity and safety. Staff will stand for any questions.
Thank you, Sonia. Would the applicant like to come forward? Good evening. We'll need your name and address for the record.
Is it working right now? It was right.
The arrows or the arrows on the keyboard aren't working. I can forward them for you if you'd like.
All right, thank you.
Apologize for that.
We're good right now.
Okay.
Good evening, Planning and Zoning Commissioners. My name is Elizabeth Kekaritz. I am with Givens Pursley. My address is 601 Bannock, Boise, Idaho. With me tonight are Jeff Riggs, Matt Riggs, Greg Hector, as well as members of our local planning development team. I want to start by saying thank you to Sonia and Bill and really everyone in the planning department. This project has been a long time coming. We've gone through numerous iterations. We feel like we've worked with every planner, even ones that aren't here now. And we're really excited with where we've landed and how this is going forward and how we comply with the 10-mile interchange special area plan. Barron Properties, just by way of background, because they haven't been here for probably a year or two, they were founded in 1983 by Jeff Riggs, and they have developed and operated over 125 residential communities in the Mountain West. One of the things that's really unique about their properties is they provide high-end amenities in a community. It's owned, operated, maintained by Barron. And residents, and there's a lot of different types of multifamily units within their projects, which allow residents to enjoy the community without and live really like they're in a single family detached home without worrying about the maintenance or upkeep associated with home ownership. Most recently, they've developed 2 projects in Meridian, including the Black Cat one, which was the first development of its type really in the Treasure Valley area. And it provided, with its attached and detached residential units, it's provided Meridian residents with a living opportunity that was previously unavailable. That one is currently, it's still partially under construction, but it has started having tenants move in, and they are giving it really rave reviews, as you can see here. The other one that they have just recently, it's been entitled, it's under construction, is the Modern Craftsman at 10 Mile. One thing, since Barron came to this community, they have become really involved in the Idaho Apartment Association and with the local chapter of the National Apartment Association. They recently had an annual event, and Barron brought home 4 awards for its developments here in Meridian. And what's really cool about this is these awards are voted on by the membership, which includes many of our most recognizable multifamily owners and developers in the Valley. And so their Black Cat project received the Property of Excellence in Meridian Award. Moving on. So vicinity map, Sonia did a really nice job of covering this. We're right north of Franklin, right at sort of the northern end of the 10-mile area specific plan. We are requesting annexation zoning, a CUP and a DA amendment. And we're in full agreement with all but 2 recommended conditions of approval. And looking at, it's not super easy to see, but this R15, we're really looking at offering a mix of housing types. You can kind of see different colored dots on here, like you see some lime green ones, some purple ones, some blue ones, and each one of those is a different housing type. The lime green ones are townhomes. There are 6 units together. They're 2-story townhomes. The purple are 1-bedroom, 1-bath duplexes. So each side there's 1 bedroom, 1 bath. The bright green are 2-bedroom, 2-bath bungalows. And then there are 6 3-bedroom, 2-bath bungalows. All the buildings use quality materials, including stone, stucco, and wood tone siding. There's a variety of roof lines and facades, some with single slope roofs, some with hip roofs. Some have attached garages, tuck under garages, detached open parking carports. There's just a wide variety for the residents that will be living here, including actually, let's go back one. I think we didn't get these slides. For you, is what's one of the things that makes the Barron projects really unique is that they really focus on providing private open space. The Meridian City Code requires 80 square feet of private usable open space per unit. And what Barron really focuses on is all of these units have their own private usable open space that far exceeds the 80 square feet. The bedrooms have 138 square foot patios and 126 square foot yards for an average of 264 square feet. The 2 bedrooms, they're combined at 578 square feet. The 3 bedrooms have 386 square feet. The 6 plexes, the townhomes, we have not included the yards. Their patios are 94 square feet, but as I'll show you in a minute, they do also have their own sort of private green grassy area. It's just not individually fenced for them. So going on, let's go one more. One of the things we really looked at in trying to get this to fit into the neighborhood was with the 10-mile plan, which focuses on 3 primary elements: land use, transportation, and design. I'll talk about each briefly in turn. Sonia did a really good job of pointing out where this is located and what's right around it. While there is residential in the immediate vicinity, this really takes advantage of the fact that within 1 mile, there's also property designated mixed employment, high density employment, industrial, commercial. We're not very far from the new Paylocity, the Salter Health, the Alquist project. There's just a lot going on right in this neighborhood, which makes this ideally situated for a neighborhood where residents can truly live and work within the same area. This is also recommended by the zoning in the R15. It talks about single family detached townhomes, 2-family duplexes, apartments, things of that nature. And although ours are all on 1 lot, they still live and work like detached single family housing. Moving on to transportation, a big issue in the 10-mile plan is focusing on traffic and interconnected streets. And here we have this unique, rather narrow property. So we worked with staff to create what you see here. We worked with the property owner to the north. Aviator Street just cuts the very corner of this property. And so they worked closely with him, with the aviation subdivision over the last 1.5 years to make sure that this property would be included, to make sure that it would be developed with that street section C as envisioned in the TMI SAP. Also, when you look to the south, it was also really important that the properties to the west have also access because you're getting close to the intersection with Black Cat and ACHD is trying to minimize connections onto Franklin. And so that's why the entrance is pushed so far to the west and then it has to curve back around to get into the bulk of it, because we are trying to work and collaborate with the neighbors to the west to make sure they have that access. The street design, focusing on the complete streets, because this is kind of a narrow, unique property shape. We really tried to work with staff on creating this main boulevard, Hanging Lake Drive through the development. And you can see on this main street, you have townhomes on one side that front up to the street, and on the other side, you have our duplexes, which also front up to the street. The TMI SAP stresses that it's really important to look at the design beyond the edge of the roadway bed. And so that's what we did here. And we really tried to copy the design standards in the TMI SAP with a narrower drive aisle for keeping traffic speeds down. The drive lane's 24 feet with 9 feet of parallel parking on each side, which also parallel parking is encouraged in the TMI SAP, followed by 8-foot carriage streets, which are wide enough. And we do intend to have trees in those, then 5-foot sidewalks. And then it's just another 5 feet to the home entrances. All of the garages along the street were moved to the rear, as it's mentioned multiple times in the TMI SAP about sort of hiding the garages behind, putting them on alleys, making them further back. We also have agreed to incorporate more traffic calming at the crossroads through pavers, bricks, colored concrete, that sort of thing at ACHD's and staff's recommendations. The design elements, here's a picture of the townhomes, and you can see there is a small grassy area in front of them. And the way this is set up, it's really not likely that other people are going to be using that. And so although we're not calling it their private usable open space, it really is, they do have a nice little grassy area that they can sit on, fronting onto this main boulevard street. Our building details are really high quality lap siding, cultured stone, stucco. We have 3 separate color schemes that are all different, but really cohesive when you view them as a whole. All the units, most of them are 1-story. The townhomes are 2-story. There's a variety of roof lines for diversity, and all the mechanical units are screened as also recommended in the TMI SAP. We have usable porches on the front. We have our walkways entering to the front. Let's see. This diversity of residential type, styles, and densities, we think does appeal to a wide range of lifestyles who want this sort of upscale living environment without the responsibility of lawn and other maintenance. Moving on to the 1-bedroom, 1-bath. This is what those units look like. They have an open floor plan with an emphasis on natural light. Every unit has a small private fenced backyard. It's desirable because there's only one shared wall on these, ample storage, and these are sort of really popular units. All of these are with young professionals sort of starting out who want more than that really multifamily 3-story walk-up experience, who are ready to have more of their own space, but aren't ready for full home ownership, and for empty nesters, retirees who want to just be able to lock it, walk away, and not have to worry about all of the upkeep that comes with home ownership. On our next, here's a picture, another picture zoomed in a little bit more on our townhomes. It's 34% of the mix. There's the 2-car garage is tucked under there. And so our parking counts, what they don't also include is the fact that there's also additional parking available on that driveway apron, but we are not counting that in those. So that does help with the overall parking. They have upper balconies and lower, they both have upper balconies and the lower porches and that private green space that I mentioned. Interior amenities, it's really tall ceilings, they're open floor plans, modern finishes, stainless steel. Everyone has their own in-unit washers and dryers. Their smart security systems, smart thermostats, all of those sort of new app-enabled amenities that people are really looking for. Within the community, there's the clubhouse includes a lounge, a coffee bar, conference room, Zoom room, state-of-the-art fitness center. As you walk through the pool, through the clubhouse, you end up in the pool area with a pool, a hot tub, an attached grill area. There's the adjacent tot lot that's next to the pool. If you go sort of up towards the northern boundary, there's a dog park up there. There is a community garden. We've learned over time that residents really do like having the option to still just dig in the dirt. And although it's not listed within code, most of these units do have the private yards, lots of parking, lots of connectivity. We will be submitting an application for our common open spaces for alternative compliance for that. We've been working through it. We're going to continue to work with staff and figure out what we can do to make it best work. And so that is something that will be coming, and we've talked to them about providing that within 15 days, at least 15 days prior to the city council meeting. It looks right now like we're about 1/3 acre short, but we're 2/3 acres over on private open space, if not more. And so we're going to try to figure out if there's just other options for us for that. The clubhouse is the next one. You can see this one, I think actually has a super cool looking round swimming pool, something you don't see every day. And it leads out to that swimming pool, hot tub and spa area. These units also include detached garages that have storage. So the garages come in blocks of, I'm just about done, 6. And then they also have additional storage units within them that individuals can also use. So each garage bank has 17 storage units also attached. We've confirmed that all services are available to the site. We're in compliance, that Meridian and fire and police are both able to serve the site, that we are meeting with all of the requirements for annexation and zoning. We meet all the setbacks. We're in compliance with all of those, just with all of those standards. And then finally, we are just asking for these 2 small conditions of approval. And it sounds like we're already in agreement, or that staff supports one of our conditions of approval on the platting and the timing for the platting, and that Public Works has signed off on that. The other one is that we are requesting that our private streets remain in easements. That's how we've worked it on the last 2 developments. It's worked out really well because there do become various setback issues. When you have to put the pins in at lot corners, there just become a lot more issues when you put this into separate, when it has to be individually platted, or when the streets have to be in separate lots, then all of your setbacks and everything kind of gets set off from there. And it creates a lot more issues going forward. So we are asking for that one change in condition. And the code does allow you to do it either way. Specifically says.
Okay.
With these, I'll stand for any questions.
All right. Thank you very much. Commissioners, we have questions for the applicant or staff?
Mr. Chair.
Go right ahead.
Thank you. Question for the applicant regarding the alternate conditions of approval, or around the open space. You mentioned you're looking for additional options and things like that. Are they? I guess what I'm trying to make sure I'm on the right page around this is, are you trying to come into compliance, or are you looking to find an alternate condition or somewhere in between? The staff report says you're looking for an alternate condition, but it sounds like you're trying to work on something. I'm just trying to make sure it's not something like, hey, we're close enough, if you round up we're almost there, or in the open space, especially considering the closeness to the school, the other development projects in in the area. There are certain things that I think it's important to ensure that there is adequate open space in this neighborhood. So I just want to ensure that that's something that's being taken into account.
Good question, Commissioner Smith. We actually are looking at probably a both and. In that we're going back, we're looking at what our open space is. Are there different areas where we could include more? Just really working through the open space really closely and carefully to see other places where we can add more open space where we already have it and maybe we're not counting it right or we're not looking at it quite right. But then I do think that we'll also be looking at applying for alternative compliance for a portion of the number.
Okay, thank you.
Brad?
Mr. Chairman, can you help me understand? I was trying to follow your description of why you prefer the easement over the common lots, but it may be me.
Okay.
I'm just not tracking with you.
All right, Commissioner Grace. Oh, so within the R15 zoning district, there are certain setbacks for every single lot. And once you put this, and so right now, everything, we only have, I believe it's 2 lots. But if everything, yes, 2 lots, but if we were to have a 3rd lot and that lot comes down as a road, then we have to also count setbacks off of that road. And right now we have things that are closer. And so we'd be having to look for waivers of distances and things of that nature. And off the top of my head, I can't tell you which ones create an issue and which ones don't, or what those exact setbacks are.
Anybody else? I've got a couple here. So, so some of the things that you've done in your other developments that I don't see here is live work. Will there be any kind of live work arrangement here or commercial?
There will not be, because this site was zoned, has a future land use map designation of straight medium density residential, medium high density residential.
Okay. In the backyards, is that for the, is that going to be like your other developments where it's going to be kind of an indoor outdoor type grass where it doesn't have to be mowed or?
I believe so. Yes, it will be.
Okay. So the storage that's provided, that is going to be for the residents only, and it will be allocated by a resident, or is it something they have to rent? Or?
It's something that you can, there's not quite enough storage for everyone. And so it's something where you can lease an extra storage unit.
Okay, and it will be for the residents of.
It's for the residents, yes.
Okay. Yeah, and then I had a similar question on the open space part, because you're calling the private open space. Generally, we just call that a yard. So I kind of, that might have missed a little bit for me. So, I mean, generally speaking, you have a yard and then you have common open space. So the two of them don't really interact very well. Common open space serves a different purpose. With that, does anybody else, Commissioner Wheeler?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So yeah, that was one of my questions too, was about the real grass. So it looked like there might be in the front of the house too, not just the back, but in the front, those little grassy spaces. I'm assuming that's going to be like artificial grass too.
Commissioner Wheeler, we have some members of the development team here who could answer that.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. Yeah, that was it. And then,
I can repeat it to put it on the record. It is actual turf in the front yards. The only not real grass is in the fenced backyard areas.
Fence back here. Okay, great. And then similarly, I mean, looking at this development, you can tell that there's a lot of thought and a lot of craftsmanship for sure, and a lot of pride in this development and the way that it's moving, the way that it's developed. And that's really good because you know that the development carries that developer's name, and he's or they are making sure that this is a high quality, nice development for sure. One of the questions though too is on the open space use. It seems like it's below that. Usually in multi-family, it's good to try to at least hit that as a benchmark, as at least the minimum requirements, if not more. And so have you thought about ways to readjust the layout on this to allow for some more open space?
Commissioner Wheeler, great question. Yes, those discussions are ongoing right now. And so we are trying to, that's where we're at. We're trying to figure things out. Can we make small adjustments here, there to really come up with more of that open space?
Okay.
Okay, any further questions? None? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, do we have anybody signed up to testify for this application?
There is no one signed up online, but we do have a David Bailey that signed up to speak.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. My name is David Bailey. And with Bailey Engineering, my office address is 1119 East State Street in Eagle. And I am the engineer and worked on this project for the developer, so I'm obviously in favor of it. But I have some insight that can talk about the two issues that you're talking about here. Is the first one is on the private road. We do these often, you know, in the city of Meridian, and we've worked on them for some time. And we have done them in easements and we have done them in common lots. When we have where we're going to subdivide the individual lots, buildings within the property for separate ownership, we need to have that frontage on a private road. And we need to have pins and those people to be able to locate their properties when they own them individually. But when they're rental units, it really doesn't add any value to the tenants within the property. So it becomes an administrative requirement. The bottom line is if the city decides they're going to make that happen, I can make it work, right? It just doesn't add anything to it. We agreed to put these drive aisles as private roads, mostly for the condition of Joe Bongiorno, the fire department, so we could provide much better addressing for emergency services within the site. Because if we just have a Franklin Road address for 122 units, it makes us a big problem for them. And so the only reason they're private roads is really to provide that addressing for them and not to provide frontage. We do also have in the same area easements for the city utilities, sewer and water services that go in there. And we've worked extensively with your department, as you might imagine, getting all those services stuck in between the buildings and making them all work right. Meeting your public works department requirements are pretty tricky. Luckily, I've got some really good engineers working on that piece and we figured it out. So I don't think it's necessary for that to be in a common lot, you know, to provide anything more than what we're providing for the project already. That said, if the city decides that's what you want, I can make it work and wouldn't affect anything. The second issue is on the open space for this. And the issue on it is that, for example, all of the green space we show on both sides of our boulevard in the center and the islands in the middle and the landscape that goes with that and those sidewalks, that has a boulevard on this that looks exactly like what you have in your 10-mile specific plan, right? We really wanted to copy that look and follow that look within there. All of that open space up through there and those boulevard strips and all that doesn't technically qualify as open space under your code. So we have plenty of open space in this project. It's just how we measure it, whether it's wide enough and in order to qualify for that, that position there. On the other end, we do have probably, I think it's over 4 times as much private open space within the project as required by the code. So we could take those yards away from people and put that into common open space. And we could actually do that. I can't say I can trade it all 1 for 1 because of configuration, but I could probably get most of it back just by taking away these private yards, which are a significant amenity to the project. So as far as the quality of the total open space for the project, we're going to ask for alternative compliance because we think we're way over that, what's required in that end. So at that point, I'd stand for any questions you might have.
Any questions from the commissioners? Commissioner Lorcher?
I have a question for staff. In regard to the private roads being either on a common lot or easement, when it comes to a full rental property, has there been a precedent set for the city of Meridian?
I think. Hi, guys. That's
I'm so
okay.
sorry. Can you please repeat that?
That is absolutely fine. So the conversation's been going around this common lot for the private roads or the easement. So these are all rentals, so there's no home ownership like the engineer had what David had just said. Has there been a precedent set in the city of Meridian for easements on rental properties versus the other? Or is it just put case by case basis? I mean, obviously, it's already been approved on occasion, but
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Lorcher. So two things. This property is being subdivided, and that's where our code specifically says if it's part of a subdivision, the preference is that it be in a common lot.
Okay.
Or another lot, whatever, not a buildable lot, not an easement. So, and the other thing is, since some of the previous approvals, the Ada County Street Name Committee has requested that these be in a separate lot recorded on the plat.
did they say why?
Yeah, excuse me, I'll refer to my notes here. I ran through it in my intro, but let me reference that again here, just a second. Yeah, so their preference was for clarity and accuracy in determining the street alignment and for approval of the street names that they are depicted on the plat and recorded.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Mr. Chairman, I want to interject as a procedural or,
Bet.
yeah, I guess a process question or topic, and I'll ask my planning colleagues to help me out here, but we have kind of an odd, this is an odd topic in the sense that in the UDC, decisions relative to private streets are delegated to the director of the department. So those are director decisions. And an applicant can ask for city council review, but absent that, those are the decisions of the director. So that's topic one. But topic two is it kind of gets blurred because now we have some proposed conditions that are attached to the preliminary plat that reference the private streets. And hence we have a discussion tonight about that. But the odd issue from a process perspective is that technically issues relative to private streets are delegated to the department director. And if the applicant isn't satisfied with that answer, the recourse is to ask for city council review. So we can talk about that more as you deliberate, but I think really if the applicant is not satisfied with the director's decision, they probably ought to consider asking for council review between now and the time this reaches the city council, and they should take that up concurrently. But I'm going to look at Bill and see if you have any additional thoughts on that.
Mr. Chair, members of the commission, we've talked about this before as staff. And yes, we've had instances where the director's made a determination and then the applicant has submitted a companion city council review application to catch up with it, just like you would with the alternative compliance that you're working. Now, I'm going to punt it back to you a little bit, Kurt, because in this instance, technically this application is going before city council. So is it really necessary to do that city council review when it's already going to be in front of the city council? Because they're actually the ones that are acting on the annexation and the CUP and the plat. So that's where we've had those internal debates about whether or not a city council review application is necessary, because this is landing in their court. And at that point, the applicant has that ability to address the council and say, we think the director has erred and we think it should be in an easement and not a common lot. But that's typically how we've handled it.
Mr. Chairman, with your indulgence, I'll make one additional comment or respond to Bill's thought there, but I don't want to get too far into the weeds tonight. It's kind of a technical esoteric issue, and I would like you to deliberate first because it may be academic. But what I would say with regard to what Bill is inquiring about is my view is that the code's pretty specific that decisions relative to private streets are the director's determination. And there's a very specific processing code that says if an applicant doesn't agree, this is what you do. And that what you do is not talking about preliminary plats and things of that nature. You ask the council to review the director's decision. And that is a discrete action. There's a separate processing code. And I think for the integrity of the process and to adhere to the code, we should probably follow that sort of a parallel concurrent process. I'll leave it at that because that's really more than you need to know right now. And it may be academic depending on your deliberations this evening regardless. So I'll happy to answer questions, but I'll leave it at that for now.
Okay, and Kurt, question on that. I mean, that leaves us to the choice. Sir, you can sit down. I think we're through this part of it. If you
Can I
want,
ask one more question since I'm here in the middle of it?
absolutely. You filled us in on a lot, so I'll allow that. Go right ahead.
In regard to that, I see his point on that end. And as I've said, it can go either way and we can live with it. It's just our preference compared to the city's preference on that. So I would appreciate that if you think that the easement's okay, that you forward that recommendation to the council and we'll take it up with them.
Excellent. Thank you.
I think
very
I think that's a fair comment. And I would say, I don't have a dog in the hunt either. I don't have a strong preference. Either. I'm just saying from a process perspective, the code's pretty specific about here's how it works. And so, part of my job is to make sure we play by the rules.
Right.
And so I just want to bring that to the commission's attention.
Okay, and so for our choices on this, I mean, as we go down the road, that essentially takes it out of our purview, is what you're speaking about, correct?
I think it's out of your purview in the sense that the decision about the private street and whether it's easement or a common lot, that decision either has been made by the director or it's going to be made. And then if the applicant doesn't agree, that wouldn't be something before this body, it would be reviewed by the city council. So I think the answer, I frame it that way. I do think the applicant or the applicant's engineer makes a good point. I certainly would not object and think it's fine if you want to make a recommendation to the council that if you go in this direction or we think this might make sense, I think that's fair game, but yeah, it really is not a decision point for the commission.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate the clarification on on that item. Where are we again? Was there any? That's right. Was there anybody else that would like to testify? Please indicate by raising your hand. I see no one. If we have no further questions for the staff or applicant, I will take a motion to close the public hearing for file number H 2022-0079. What's that? Come on up. Sorry. I'm flustered at this point, so.
Mr. Chairman, though, I think we would close public comment and then you'd let the applicant come up, right?
But beforehand.
Beforehand? No, I'm flustered.
As the commission recalls, our typical process, we have a staff presentation first, then we ask the applicant to present, we hear from the public, and then we always provide opportunity for the applicant to sort of close the argument, so to speak, and answer
Right.
questions. So that's very appropriate before we close the public hearing. We'll get all that on the record.
Okay. I'm sorry about that. Generally, when another member of the staff comes up, then there's not much more to add, but the floor is yours.
I'll be very brief. Elizabeth Kekritz once again, Givens Pursley. I guess, and I just want to reiterate one of the points about putting these streets into private roads, which I understand there is a question as to process wise, whether or not that's in front of you today or not, which I don't necessarily know is something to get into, but it is a recommended condition of approval within the staff report. And so it's important from our perspective to make sure we address everything that's in that recommended conditions of approval. However, the one thing that I just wanted to close with is that what makes this also unique and different when it comes to these private roads, when it comes to this development as a whole, compared to almost all the other multifamily development complexes that are ever going to come before you, is that this is owned by the same family team, Barron Properties, from now through the construction, through to the operation, to the management, through to the very end. And so a lot of the concerns that come with putting things in public roads versus private roads, and a lot of these other concerns, they just simply don't exist in developments like this, where it really is one cohesive unit and they're really looking at taking care of their own property for the long term. Thank you. And with that, we would ask for a recommendation of approval for our applications.
Thank you very much. Okay, now, if nobody has any further questions for the applicant or staff, I will ask for a motion to close the public hearing for file number H 2022-0079.
Still moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. We close the public hearing for file number H 2022-0079. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Public hearing is closed. Who would like to go first? Everybody, Commissioner Grace, go right ahead.
Sure, Mr. Chairman, I really like the design elements and the design concept. I like the variety of housing types. I think it fits the area, the proximity to other activities in terms of jobs and schools. I really like the external site amenities, so I'm in favor of the project. I hesitate to wander off because we probably don't need to based on council's, well, I'm not going to then. Based on council's recommendation that it might not be before us, but if we do, it turns out that we do want to make a recommendation as a group, then I guess I have some thoughts on that.
Okay. Anybody else?
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Commissioner Smith.
Yeah, I just wanted to come back on the open space question. I know there's there's not a ton for us to look at right now in terms of what that looks like. I'm struggling a little bit with some comments, as I think you kind of referred to, of private open space being equated to similar statuses as public open space. I don't think that makes sense. I don't think it's reasonable. Theoretically, you could give a handful of people massive backyards and make the same argument. I just don't think it tracks, because like you said, there are different purposes. I think that also follows suit with the strips on different on sides of streets. I think that the purpose of open space is pretty clear, and there's a reason that the code is set out as it is. So I don't know if this looks like a condition, since it's something that's going to come before the council and we haven't really looked at it, but I sincerely would hope that the developer would make as much of an effort as possible to get into compliance. I understand that alternate compliance might be necessary regardless, but I think I personally would like to see a whole lot of the former than the latter, is my main kind of consideration, just especially given just the general density in this area. The denser you get, I think the more important open space becomes, in the long run, in long-term planning. So those are some comments. I don't know if I would want that as a condition. I don't know if that really can be a condition, since it's still TBD regarding what the ultimate proposal to city council looks like. But those are just some thoughts.
Okay, and I agree with what you're saying, and I mean the open space, private space doesn't necessarily track with me. However, I will say that I'm glad to see, and I do like the design of these. I have toured the one that's up on Black Cat, and it's pretty impressive. And it's not a whole bunch of fourplexes, and it's not a massive apartment complex. So personally, I really, really appreciate that this is still considered multifamily, that it's livable. So I would like to see the applicant come to at least the minimum. So I know that might be a stretch, but I think the minimum is something that can be accomplished here. So without degrading the design or the atmosphere of the subdivision that's or the development here. So that is something that I would like to see happen with it personally, but I do appreciate the design of it for sure. Anybody else?
Mr. Chair.
Brad?
Yeah, so I'm just going to mimic those same comments there. For me, like I said, there's a high quality here. There's a lot of pride in what's going on in the development on here. Good quality. It's a place that doesn't, just seem like they're just trying to pack it in as deeply as they can. They have wider drive aisles. It's a beautiful community concept. It really is. And the fact though that it's on, I believe it's on one parcel, is that what I heard correctly? Was that it was on one parcel?
I believe
Besides-
it's 3
or-
different parcels.
Is it 3 parcels? Okay, so it's on 3 parcels there, but allows them to kind of combine a little bit of those open spaces without the lot lines there as being used for some of the yards are being counted for as open space. So, and even that buffer up there, I look at more as like open space, like where the kid's gonna go play, where somebody can throw a soccer ball or kick a soccer ball, throw a ball around at. And while there are some of those spaces there that are for some of the duplexes, and there's some down on the south end, it would maybe some of the utilization of where that can go so that the community can enjoy that that's more of what I'm hoping that can be hit. And once again, just the minimum would be nice to see in some way or another. But this is a great concept in a great spot.
Okay, thank you. Now, as far as the kind of what's not agreed upon, I mean, if whoever's going to make the motion, it sounds like the staff and applicant are in agreement on the last two, the A36M and the B29. As far as the A21C, what I've seen in the past, when it comes down to decisions like this, when it's somewhat not necessarily in our purview and we make a recommendation, generally speaking, I've supported what staff has down, and then I leave that to council to deliberate, or a decision to come in from somewhere else. So if somebody else accepts that, then that's something that, again, it's basically out of our purview. But if you do have designs on whether or not you do support it or not, feel free to voice that in a motion. And with that, I'll take a motion. Anybody would like to throw one in? Commissioner Grace, I see you're reaching
Chair.
for the microphone.
Mr. Chairman, after considering all staff applicant and public testimony, I move to recommend approval to the city council file number H dash 2022-0079 is presented in the staff report for the hearing date of April 6, 2023, with the following additional recommendation that with regard to the applicant's requested modification regarding A21C, that the private streets, that we follow the director's initial, I guess, decision on that to call those common lot in lieu of an easement.
Do you have any comment on the other two?
Oh, well, I would be in favor of the other two requested, and that would be part of my motion as well. It sounds like those were already agreed upon.
Okay, I think they want those stricken unless I'm,
Say again, Mr. Chairman.
I believe they want those stricken. They're conditions right now, so they would need to be stricken.
Right, and I would be in favor of, and make in my motion to strike those other two.
Okay, can you list those out? And then there's one other one that Sonia has listed at the very end.
So I'm looking at modification A.3.6M, then B.2.9. Is that accurate?
That is correct. Then I believe Sonia wanted an additional one that's listed at the bottom.
Chairman Seal.
Go right ahead.
May I interrupt?
Yep.
Condition B 2.9, the request was to strike it, but to replace it with new language as contained in the hearing outline and the applicant's response to the staff report. Thank you.
Did I do it? This got awfully complicated. Mr.
It does sometimes. So yeah, essentially to
Oh, the additional request. Okay. we didn't talk about that unnecessarily, but I too would be in favor of it if that's what staff has determined in their infinite wisdom.
You want to go ahead and read it out loud?
So, Mr. Chairman, I make the same motion with the same comments regarding the applicant's requested modifications, and I would add the additional recommendation of a condition to add the required sidewalk along the south side of West Fresh Powder Lane. Oh, on the north side of the common area where the community center is located for pedestrian connectivity and safety.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to recommend approval of file number H 2022-0079 with the aforementioned modifications. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. All right. With that, I'd like to open the public hearing for item number H 2022-0066, and we will begin staff report.
I'm making that transition easy on you tonight. Apologize about that. Thank you, Chair, members of the commission. Next item on the agenda this evening is the Artisan Victory Market. The applicant is here to discuss with you annexation, preliminary plat, conditional use permit, and again, a private street. As you looked at the previous project and this project, you'll see there's some similarities between both of them, and it's the same applicant. So their request was to have you act on their modern craftsman project on Franklin first, and that way we can maybe go through this last one a little bit quicker and get to some of the public testimony. It looks like we have a full audience wanting to testify in this particular project. As you know, this has been continued multiple times. And again, as you heard from the applicant this evening, due to staff changes, they were also passed around to different planners, and it landed up on my plate. And I told them that I would commit to getting them to the finish line on this project because the last thing we want to do is have applicants waiting in the wings and taking a long time to get through our process. So I felt it prudent to take over the project and then help them get through the finish line and make sure that whatever we're doing tonight, it's consistent with the other approvals that they had throughout the city. I too had the opportunity of touring their Black Cat facility as well. And I agree with all the commission's comments this evening. It is a quality development. Now, where this project differs from the other project is it's actually located. So sorry, let me back up here. So this project consists of 13.6 acres of land, currently zoned RUT in Ada County, and there's 7 properties associated with the annexation request. As you know, annexation requests, their boundaries are larger than the preliminary plat. So the annexation itself is 14.47 acres, where the plat is 13.6. And that's just because we have applicants annex the property to the center line of the roadway. So we know who has jurisdiction if there's an accident on Eagle Road. It's more of a public safety issue than anything, and just making sure zoning goes to the center line of the adjacent right of ways. But you can see here that this subject property is completely surrounded by city zoned property, annexed property. And there has been some history on this site. In the early 2005, 2006, this property did come before the city for comprehensive plan map amendment. At the time, it was part of a larger area, and the applicant was requesting mixed use regional on the site. At that time, the council didn't feel comfortable with that designation, and it got downgraded to mixed use community. Later, they came forward with annexation, and council did not support the annexation or the concept plan. So they denied the annexation, but approved the comprehensive plan map amendment. And that's why we have mixed use community on this property tonight. You can also look at the future land use map and see that this area is part of a larger mixed use community area. In the staff report, we shared with you that starting at the north boundary of the mixed-use community area, the site has storage, and then as you transition to the south, it transitions to the office part, and then some more single family. And then we have this property, which has that multifamily component and a commercial component. And then as you transition even farther south at the intersection, which is Inglewood Place subdivision, there will be, it's the assisting living care facility, and there's some independent units across on the other side of Titanium, just like this particular project. But on the corner, there's a daycare and a Starbucks with a drive-through on it. And then even across the other side, the south side of Victory, we have the Rite Aid, another coffee shop with a drive-through, and another daycare. So when you look at all of what's occurring in this mixed-use area, we found that the project was consistent with the mixed-use community designation based on what's occurring. And that's why we did support just the 2 land use types on this particular site, given the size of it and not on, in looking at the entire area as a whole. So I just want to at least put that out there for you as well. Let's see if this will advance here. Nope, there we go. Now I'm locked up. So as I mentioned to you, the applicant is here to annex in 14.47 acres of land. A majority of it will be zoned R15. You can see in the right-hand exhibit that the R15 zoning area is approximately 12.38 acres, and the CC zone or the commercial zone is approximately 2.09 acres, which is consistent with the development to the south of this as well. Here is the preliminary plat that the applicant is proposing. This is just basically show you the lot layout. So the applicant is proposing to subdivide 3 multifamily lots, which would be located here to the north, the east, and internal to the development, and also a portion of the south here. And the 2 commercial lots are adjacent to Eagle Road in this general location here. And again, the purpose of that was so that it would align with the commercial zoning that's currently approved in the Inglewood subdivision. And it also helps facilitate cross access with that adjacent subdivision, which was a condition of that project as well. Now, what I've tried to describe on this exhibit before you is the road connectivity for the development. And I'll go through that briefly. And the reason why I thought it was important to highlight that, because if you had a chance to look at the public record, the public comments for this particular project, a lot of the public testimony had to do with concerns with traffic, density, and then extending these stub streets. And I thought, based on just the amount of public testimony we had, it's important to stress and at least explain how we analyze projects and what this project entails as far as connectivity. So starting with the cross access, I have highlighted that in a rectangle. It's actually highlighted in blue, but it doesn't show up well in this graphic. But so the access to Eagle Road will be very similar to the previous project. It is a driveway connection. It is not a private street connection. If you had a chance to look at the staff report, both mine and Sonia's staff report for both projects, our code does not support private streets connecting into arterial roadways. That would require alternative compliance. In pre-application meetings with the applicant, we made them aware of that requirement. And so they have adjusted their plan accordingly and made sure that this is only a driveway connection, along with a driveway connection, a cross-access driveway with the property to the south. And this is also consistent with ACHD's approval as well. Now, the private street network that's being proposed with this subdivision is actually this looped road here, and similar to the staff's recommendation on the previous staff report, we are recommending that this easement be converted over to a common driveway based on the same testimony you heard on the previous application. The areas that I've highlighted with a red circle are the public right-of-ways or the stub streets controlled by Ada County Highway District that are extended to this particular property. I would let you know that the applicant has been working with staff over a year on this, on making sure they get the layout right. And every time that they met with staff, they were informed that these roads need to be extended with this development, particularly if they were going to propose an internal private street network. Because the last thing we want to do, if you look at the mixed use community standards, connectivity is important, not only vehicular, but also pedestrian connectivity. And that's why it's important that not only does the applicant plat the property and dedicate additional right-of-way, but extend those substreets for not only the benefit for this development, but also for the surrounding developments. So that's very, very critical. And if you had, as you're aware, when there's a substreet adjacent to a property, ACHD requires a road that says this is a public right of way, this road is to be extended in the future. And that's what today is. It's us talking about the extension of these roadways because we're here subdividing the project. The other important factor for having this road is we don't want to funnel everyone out to Eagle Road, or that it will happen that way, but that shouldn't be the primary access for this subdivision to cut through this multifamily development and try to get to Eagle Road. We want to make sure that both Victory and Eagle Road are arterial roadways. So we'd like to have a backage road or some kind of local street or collector street network to funnel traffic to those roadways. And that's why it's critical to have this local street network and get these roads connected, so that all of these residents don't necessarily need to cut through this development to get to Eagle Road, or at least use the main use this Eagle Road access as it's currently designed. So thought I'd give you a little bit more on that and let you know that's why it's important. We've got both ACHD's policies and city's code and city's policies require the extension of roadways. Also mentioned to you, if you had a chance to look at the ACHD staff report and staff's recommended conditions of approval, because of the length of this roadway, it does exceed code requirements. Not necessarily our requirements, because the applicant has many different intersections here, but ACHD noted that this roadway will exceed over 750 linear feet. And in keeping in spirit with ACHD's conditions of approval and with our mixed use guidelines, staff has recommended not to redesign the road as ACHD has suggested, but we have recommended that the applicant work with us and ACHD to implement traffic calming at this intersection and create decorative crossings. Per our recommendation, of course, ACHD and the applicant is in agreement with that. They think that's important as well. Just like the last application, integration and integrating all of these uses together is just as important in the 10-mile area as it is in mixed use areas. And so that will be an important design element moving forward. So the applicant, I wanted to step back here. So the areas that I have highlighted in the tan are things the applicant can remove from the plan. It's not necessary to have these as private streets or dedicated easements for access. As you've heard, this is all going to be held under one ownership. The applicant's going to maintain it and own it. It's not necessary to do that. We'll treat it just like any other multifamily development, and they'll just build driveways and shared parking lots for the residences to use. And as Mr. Bailey mentioned in the previous presentation, again, the private street is important for addressing as well. So that's really one of the major purpose of why we're platting the private street is, again, for emergency services. The other thing that I would note to you are the units on the east boundary of the site. They do have accesses to shared driveways. Typically in a single family residential development, we would classify those as common driveways. But in this instance, they function more like a commercial drive aisle. But the applicant has been notified that those driveways should at least be 20 feet wide minimum, so that residents can get in and out of there and get access to the garages. And that has been conditioned accordingly. So that kind of highlights all of the access points proposed for this particular subdivision. So here's the site plan for the conditional use permit. The CUP is a request to develop 131 single or 131 dwelling units on the site. I want to steer away from multifamily, but that's what it is technically in our definition. As you noted, the applicant tries to have these live like a single family development. And the mix of residential types in here will be the same as you heard before. So you have some townhome units, some duplex units, and then some single family detached units. And that the applicant has highlighted that on the proposed CUP site plan here for you to take under consideration. If in the staff report, I did note that the applicant did align the townhomes along the south boundary to provide that transition to the larger assisted living facility on the south boundary, and then was very cognitive of the adjacent single family on the east and also the north boundary. And so they have provided all single stories along those boundaries as well. Also, for multifamily developments, you have to have a minimum 10-foot setback along the perimeter unless the code requires a greater separation. In this particular case, the applicant is providing a 15-foot setback, in some cases a 20-foot setback along that perimeter. Now, I did note in the open space section of the staff report that some of those areas would not count towards their open space requirements because the code requires those to be a minimum 20 feet wide. So there are specific dimensional standards that you have to use in order to count qualified open space. And I'll get into that a little bit more as well. So parking for the site, this application actually came in prior to the adoption of our current standards. So this particular application before you is really a hybrid of what the current code is and what the previous code is. I think the applicant really was trying to meet the spirit of the code and try to get more open space and provide a higher parking ratio than what was required under the previous code. So in the staff report, I did analyze the parking and let you know that there's really 191 parking stalls required for this site based under the previous code. And as proposed by the applicant, there's 236 on this particular site plan. And that's a mixture of garage spaces and surface parking and covered parking. Also note, let the commission know that the applicant also noted that there's some on-street parking available here too. So there's 50 plus additional parking spaces on the street, and the applicant has been very mindful in their design to have parkways between the curb and the sidewalk to also provide that traditional neighborhood feel, which I think is important, again, to those mixed use standards. So here was the color rendering that the applicant provided in their open space exhibit. As I mentioned to you, along the perimeter, some of what I appreciated the applicant doing on this particular project was they did highlight what areas were counted towards the baseline open space in the multifamily versus what the open space is required per the square footage of each multifamily unit, plus the private open space required by the multifamily standard. So the light green itself is what the applicant classified as the 10% baseline that's required by code. The darker green is the area or the areas that represent the amount of common open space that is required per the square footage of each residential unit. In this particular case, all the units do exceed 500 square feet. So it's anywhere between 250 square feet and 350 square feet per residential unit, in addition to that baseline. So technically, if the applicant is using the new standards, which they committed to doing, they have to provide a minimum of 1.93 acres of open space on this site. And so just like the previous application, staff has recommended that the applicant provide a revised open space exhibit, either removing those areas from the calculation so we can confirm that they still meet the minimums, or enhancing those areas so they can be counted towards open space. And what I mean by that is I had a conversation with the applicant on Tuesday, and they were toying with the idea of adding some more pedestrian walkways through some of those areas to create this nice looping path through the development. So they can not only enhance the open space, but also add to the amenity or the experience in the development. And I thought that was a great idea to do that. So I'm sure they're going to work with me as we transition from this body to city council, but just want to let you know that, again, same issue here. We need to make sure we need a revised open space exhibit, make sure that we're hitting at least those minimums. And I know the applicant is committed to potentially adding more. I would also mention to you that we have recommended some changes to the site plan that's before you too, and I'm going to use the landscape plan because it's a lot less busy and a lot easier to read for discussion purposes. So essentially, staff had raised some concerns that a lot of this site is amenity and open space heavy on the west side of Titanium and not necessarily east side. But you can see here, based on the schematic that you see here, there's really not a lot of integration between the two developments. It's a road separating the two. Hence the importance of why we need that the traffic calming and the decorative crosswalks at that section to help promote some of that connectivity and integrate this site a little bit better. But I also wanted to bring to your attention that the applicant is proposing a trash enclosure in this particular location. And you can see here, there's not, if someone wants to get over to the tot lot in the clubhouse, you're going out a route to get there or you're walking through the parking lot. So staff had recommended that they either shift this trash enclosure or relocate it and then provide a more direct connection in this location so that when you do cross the street and come in here, you can just stay on sidewalk and get to those essential amenities for the proposed development. The other thing, what I wanted to talk about is the concept plan for the commercial development. So the applicant is proposing up to 18,100 square feet of commercial on this site. So here's a multi-tenant building here and then a potential retail tenant here with a drive-through. And with the mixed use developments, again, we try to integrate all the uses. And so the applicant was made aware, at least I shared with them, that we were going to be asking for some type of plaza and integrated pathway connection through the commercial to tie in with this open space as well. We thought this was a good linkage between the two here. So this will have to get redesigned slightly to include a plaza area and then provide a pedestrian connectivity. Again, another decorative crossing through the private street, linking this open space with the plaza area that's going to be planned or required as part of the commercial component, and then ultimately get people out to the 7-foot sidewalk along Eagle Road. So the applicant will work that into their plans as well, but that's another component of that mixed use element that needs to be addressed with this particular project. But again, it has been conditioned accordingly in the staff report. You can also see here that with this application, the applicant has provided a fencing plan. And I've highlighted what all the different colors mean for you so you can see how that lays out. But generally, this is consistent to what the code would require or allowed as part of the development. So really no real issues with the fencing. The only thing that I called out in the staff report, it appeared that some of the fencing was a little close to the roadway, and the code requires that fencing be set back 10 feet from the property line. So applicant assured me that they could probably accommodate that and make that work. Here's the amenity plan, as I mentioned to you, similar amenities as the previous project. Staff did condition the applicant to add an additional amenity from the multimodal category. They did confirm that they do plan on putting vehicle charging stations in this development, just like all their other developments that they have going on in Meridian. And so with that addition, staff finds that they do meet the amenity requirements of the UDC. Again, similar building elevations, same building materials, pretty consistent theme tonight. Again, just like Sonia mentioned, I really appreciate the fact that the applicant is trying to integrate the commercial design in with the residential. Again, that is another essential component of mixed use developments. And of course, the applicant will have to require with all the architectural standards manual guidelines in the ASM as well. So again, generally speaking, staff is supportive of this particular project and the design as proposed by the applicant. And again, that second check will be done at the staff level when we do the administrative design review. As I noted earlier in my presentation, a lot of public comments on this particular one, and you can tell by the audience here tonight that I think a lot of it is really the concern of the extension of Titanium is what I saw in that hearing outline. So I know you guys had asked me to send over the staff report for the Inglewood development, including ACHD staff report, which I did. And I think you're very well aware of that. It was required as a public street and stubbed to this property and was required to put a sign up in front of that street that said this right of way will be extended in the future. I also want to mention to you that I did receive written comments from the applicant, similar to the same information that you had on the previous application. Applicant wants to modify DA provision C in the staff report. Staff is amenable to this. Again, it's the same reasons. The only thing I don't think we need to make the condition as lengthy as the applicant has proposed. The language that they're proposing, it's in your hearing outline in front of you, but it does coincide with the public works condition that they want modified. And as Sonia mentioned to you, we have coordinated and we are supportive of that. So I don't think we need a paragraph of a condition in a DA. I simply just want to modify that particular condition as it's currently written to change it from prior to final plat shall be recorded prior to the issuance of the first occupancy permit or any structure within this development. That would allow the applicant to still meet their, get things under construction, bond, and do those subdivision improvement at the same time as they're working through all the other public works issues and items that they need to as part of the final plat process. Item number 2 is the common lot versus the easement for the private street. I think I'm going to stand with how that decision went on the last one. I think it really needs to stay in a common lot. We want to support Ada County as we can. As mentioned in the previous project, this just came about a few months ago from Ada County. What was happening is they were getting quite a few requests for private streets, but they had no subdivision or plat in front of them to even understand how to name them or what was even, people were just trying to name commercial drive aisles and didn't even have a private street application with the city. And so as part of their process, they just feel it's easier to process, treat private streets almost like public dedication. It's on a plat. When you record a plat, you show the public right of way on it. And this would be no different. It would be a common lot with a street name showing how it aligns with all the adjacent streets. And typically the street naming committee, if that private street aligns with any other public street, it gets named pretty similar to what the public street is. It'll just have a lane at the end of it versus a street, avenue, or road on it. That's really the difference here. So I think we've kind of beat that one to death tonight. And I think you guys are clear on what your purview is on that tonight. And then second, the last item that the applicant shared with has to do with that public works condition. It's the same 2.9 and staff is agreeable to that. So we're good with that language as written in that hearing outline. Again, staff finds that this is consistent with the comprehensive plan. It does with the conditions in the staff report, we are recommending approval, and I'll stand for any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you very much, Bill. Would the applicant like to come forward? Good evening again.
Good evening. I am still Elizabeth Kekaritz, still with Gibbons Pursley at 601 Bannock. And I am still here with the Barron Development Team. Good evening. Again, Planning and Zoning Commissioners, Elizabeth Kekaritz with Gibbons Pursley, 601 Bannock. I am here on another Barron Properties project. And once again, I won't go over everything over again, but we do have Jeff and Matt Riggs here, as well as Greg Hector with Barron Properties, as well as the most of the development team who will be able to answer questions that I'm unable to. Thank you so much, Bill, for that presentation. We have been working for a long time on this one as well. We've gone through several iterations and we finally landed in what we think is a really good place. And this one does have the commercial. Once we've incorporated the variety of mixed use housing, we have two commercial pads. They're about the same size. One we anticipate being one larger sort of development, one larger sort of building on it. And the other is being built more to be able to divide and have several 5 or 6 smaller businesses located on it. And I'll talk more about that in a few minutes. We agree with Bill with all of the conditions, with putting in a better plaza in the commercial area, improving some of our connections, the pathways, the traffic calming that ACHD is requesting. We are agreeable to all of that, except for still, it now also sounds like we're likely in agreement on all but one condition. And rather, I think, than rehashing all of that at this point, I would actually, with your leave, Mr. Starman, the attorney, just ask that the record reflect, if this were to ever go up on some sort of appeal, that the record reflect that full discussion that was had concerning it, rather than redo all of that at this point.
Just for the record, I'll say that I think that's a good approach and I would support that, and that sounds fine.
All right, thank you. So here we have, just skipping through a bunch of our first slides. The surrounding here is, as Bill just talked about, is our site plan. It's to the south, there's the R15 and CC zoning. There's R8 to the north, and there is R4 to the east. Properties to the north and east, the surrounding single-family detached residential. Those are all 1 and 2 story single family homes. And so in looking at that, the development team very purposely placed 1 story buildings up adjacent to that fence line, and purposely moved all of the 2 story townhomes down to the south and down along Eagle Road. We've all been in many of these hearings, and we've all heard neighbors talk about the multifamily apartments coming and looking down into their backyards. And so that's the one thing that we don't want to have that complaint ever with these developments, that this really is meant to live and work like single family, standalone detached single family residential housing. And all of these houses are very purposely 1 story in this location. As Bill can go to the next one. The future land use map, it's about a 40-acre area within this mixed use community area. And it really has fully developed with sort of the vision of the city. From the top to the bottom, you have storage, you have an office park, there's some higher density single family residential. There's our development where we're proposing multifamily and commercial. There's the daycare, the over 55 community, and across the street is a Rite Aid. Notably missing from this is, without this, any sort of multifamily development, which is actually often typically a component in these mixed use community areas. And one thing that has come up is, if you also notice, the properties to the east, there were initially some concerns with the neighbors. They're designated medium density residential, which is a completely different type of flume designation, which has its own set of requirements. And so this property could not be developed in that way. Even if we were to come here and want to do that, it really is meant for a mix of some sort of commercial residential development on it, like what we're proposing. Again, I'm not going to go through this as in much detail this time. There is the big variety, the product variety and mix here. 2-story. This slide, so one of the things that's a little bit just slightly different than the other ones, the top picture is a picture of our 2-bedroom, 2-bath standalone units. Those all come with, so you can see sort of as you're going into it, and we have agreed to widen the drive aisle to the 20 feet. We have agreed to widen the drive aisle to the 20 feet. I apologize. And so that's one, that's the same similar sort of building, a little bit different setup of how it is here. Then you can also see our townhome units, which turn out to be some of the most popular, most desirable units. There's the 3-bedroom units are on the 2 end units, and then the 4 in the middle are all 2-bedroom units. And they still have that tuck under a 2-car garage. We can keep moving forward. This is our 1-bedroom, 1-bath duplex again. And the townhomes. The clubhouse here, it's so here we have the clubhouse. Once again, it's laid out very similarly. You walk in, it has all of the same sort of high-end amenities, a coffee bar, a Zoom room, app-enabled fitness equipment. There'll also be the leasing office here. You walk through it out into the pool area, which also includes, it's the resort style pool with the really nice furniture, hot tub, and also adjacent here again is the top lot. The detached garages with storage, once again, as we talked, and I actually have a parking exhibit here. There's both these garages. We now have more of the 2-bedroom with attached garage and all of those townhomes that also include attached garages, which is something that the residents really do appreciate, actually having the real garage bay space. The community amenities are close to the same as last time. Including it does have the dog park with the walking path on the north side. Inside the clubhouse, it's a 2,780 square foot clubhouse with the pool, large pool deck, hot tub, the tot lot. There's also the community garden at the corner of Publisher and Titanium, and we will be providing those additional pathway connections that we talked about. And one of the other things, since trash did come up, is there's also a trash valet service where they mentioned that every day, if you leave your trash on the front step, someone will come along and pick it up and take it to the dumpster for you. And this seems, I did not know this happened, that this could happen. This is a really nice, I'm also considering it an amenity. They do include the EV charging stations. One thing that Barron does is they're currently going to put in 4 right now, but they do install the infrastructure throughout. So as electric vehicles become more and more prevalent, it's easy just to then pull it up instead of having to go back and lay all that infrastructure again for those charging stations. The interior amenities are the same as before. They really pride themselves on the high-end amenities, the really nice finishes. We actually have a parking exhibit on this one that really helps lay out the different types of parking. As mentioned, there's 274 parking spaces for the multifamily portion, and that doesn't include any parking on townhome drives or on-street parking on Titanium or Publisher streets. If you look, the open parking is the aqua blue, and that's just more of the standard parking lot parking. The covered parking carports are in green. The standalone garage buildings with the storage attached, those are in red. And then any building with an internal garage is shown in royal blue. And this also does not include the commercial parking, which is an additional 55 spaces. Okay. Moving on to open space. Let's see. Per the 2 kinds of open space in the development code, we need to provide about 1.95 acres. We were providing approximately 2.25 acres, but now we're backed off on that a little bit. On this development, so we will be submitting an updated open space plan. However, on this development, we are confident that we are going to hit the open space requirements. We don't think that alternative compliance is going to be required. We know a couple places where we can put it, where we can look at things, where we can really make sure that this is inclusive and it does check all those boxes. Once again, each unit does also have its own private open space, ranging from, for a 1-bedroom, 509 square feet between the patio and the yard, up to the 3-bedroom units have a total of 681 square feet. Once again, the townhomes do not have that private fenced area, but so they have their patios, which are 92 to 94 square feet, but they still do have that smaller grassy area. It's just not a private fenced area. Pathways, you can see here that there are a lot of connections, and we are working with staff on making sure that we incorporate all of them that they are looking for. There's going to be one near a trash enclosure to make it easier to go straight out sort of from the clubhouse area across the parking lot to get to Titanium Street. We are going to look at some more decorative crosswalks, some different traffic calming devices, things that that both the city and ACHD will sign off on. And really, yeah. Services and utilities, sewer and water are adjacent to the property. Police and fire can serve the site. One question that came up in comments was, what about the irrigation water? And in this case, there was enough allotment from purchasing the property for that we have sufficient irrigation water on the property and will not have to go and use any other second source or find a second source, that there is enough water for irrigation with the property. Of course, as it works, if we're really low on water, everyone's get their pro rata decrease, but there was enough water with the property purchase in order to fully supply their irrigation. And then ACHD has reviewed and approved the traffic study, and all of the conditions of approval are acceptable. Just the roadway connectivity, Bill went into it quite a bit in his discussion. But what we also went back, because we do understand there's the concerns with the extension of Publisher and Titanium. This is recommended by both ACHD and the city, and it complies with the ACHD's continuation of streets policy. So I did go back into the traffic impact study and looked at what is actually going to be coming from this development onto Victory Road at the access where Titanium will hit Victory Road. And going out, the estimates are going out in the AM peak hour, there will be 20 trips. Coming in will be 7 in the AM. And in the PM, there will be 17 and 17 going out and 17 coming in. And so while there is you can't deny that is somewhat of an impact. That's not, I hope that gives some relief to people that this is not, that although there's traffic, there will be some increased traffic. Any development has traffic, that these are not huge numbers really super negatively affecting this one intersection. Finally, so for commercial, there'll be a maximum of up to 18,100 square feet of commercial. And it fronts Eagle Road, which makes it pretty desirable commercial area. We exceed the required parking because the tenants are not yet known. And this does have to go through design review. These are illustrative drawings only. However, we anticipate having one larger tenant and the smaller tenants that you can see on the bottom. We understand Bill's comments about the plaza and making sure this all connects better. And so we will be working with him on that. Finally, the conditions of approval, you can't really read them here. And I don't want to say that we are 100% in agreement with Bill's conditions because we want to have the opportunity just to think through it and digest it, but we are certain that we can reach something that would work for that particular condition. And with that, we would ask for a recommendation of approval to the city council, and I'll stand for any questions.
All right, thank you very much. Commissioners, we have questions for the applicant or staff?
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Smith, go ahead.
just a question on one of the last points around that commercial space. I know some of the public comments were desiring, more kind of public facing retail, things like that in the area rather than residential. I'm just curious, did you design those spaces? Or are you kind of conceiving of these spaces with a certain type of commercial inhabitant, or is it kind of TBD?
Well, the thought is that there'll be one that'll be something a little bit bigger, something like a pharmacy or a bank, or it could be a restaurant, maybe a GNC, a specialty retail, something like that on the bigger pad. And then on the smaller, well, I guess the pads are about the same size, but on the one where we're depicting a larger building. And then on the other lot, we see more of like, because it is able to be divided into smaller units, something like tutoring, an accountant, and maybe a salon, but just some smaller, more locally serving businesses there.
Okay, thank you.
Will those commercial units be available for live work or not?
There are no live work units, Commissioner Seal on this one.
Can you tell I really like those? Sorry.
Mr. Chair.
Go right ahead.
Thank you. So you mentioned or Elizabeth, right?
Yes.
I get it, that's right. Still, like you said, just still, right?
No.
Had a question. You mentioned about titanium, and this is, if you can leave it right here, Bill, this is a great spot here for just some of my questions. You mentioned that on titanium, as it goes southbound and it intersects with Victory Road, that the traffic counts on that, right? But we know that there's 133 doors, I believe, in here. So with 17 going in and 17 going out, that leaves unaccounted a lot more traffic. So what did the traffic study say about we'll be entering onto Eagle Road?
Okay, so the traffic study breaks it down as, you know what? I think I did a slide for this. Let's go to the far end. I think it's the very last. Oh, no, it didn't include the slides. That's the mitigation. So if you look at, ultimately, 65% of the traffic heads north on Eagle. 25. Let me just confirm. I have this all flagged.
And just for the record, just make sure you can speak into the mic too, please.
I apologize. I thought I had this one flagged, but I will find it quickly.
You're fine.
Okay, 25% of the traffic overall will go south out onto Victory Road, south down Titanium. 40% of the traffic is estimated that it will go up to EasyJet and then jog over to Eagle. And 35% of the traffic will go in and out. 35% total will go in and out on the Eagle Road access. So then ultimately 65% of the traffic ends up heading north on Eagle, and 7% of the traffic ends up heading, no, 13% ends up heading east on Victory, 20 ends up going south on Eagle, and it looks like 8 ends up going west on Victory.
So on peak hours then, so let's go like AM peak, what are we looking at for like northbound, southbound traffic? Mainly it's going to be northbound traffic on Eagle Road at that entry point.
So northbound traffic at EasyJet,
No, at the entry point at A.
at the entry point at A. So that is, the entry point at A is from this development, and I can dig into here and eventually find the total traffic numbers on Eagle. But from this development, there'll be 21 going out and heading north and 9 going out and heading south, and 9 coming in from the north, and 4 coming in from the south.
Okay, and then an EasyJet, you're saying that the traffic was, that's where this.
Yeah,
Was it
EasyJet
35?
is the big interstate, is
Yeah,
the
it's one.
one, and that one is showing, and this is, if you have, and I can provide you this information later, I believe it's probably attached somewhere, is that going on EasyJet, which is number 1, 32 cars at that intersection will be turning north out of EasyJet in the morning. 21 cars are going to be from this development will be going north through the intersection. 10 cars will be coming down through the intersection to get to A to turn in, and 15 cars will turn onto EasyJet.
Okay,
That is the most thorough traffic demonstration I think I've ever seen.
ditto.
Can you do that with bikes now?
I would love to.
Just kidding.
Right about now, I'm really wishing I wish the traffic engineer was here.
And I do appreciate you digging for the questions instead of what we normally get, which is, I don't know, I'll get back with you. So I do appreciate you digging that up. I honestly do. Somehow there's, something's not getting accounted for because there's 133 doors. I'm not saying that not at all. Okay. I'm just saying that there's going to be more traffic than I think was getting projected coming out on that side of things. And especially on that road itself. So no, none of that, please.
I can get, I got more numbers.
No, I know you do. And I trust you on that.
I can
And
help
you
with
are,
anything else.
no, this is
Okay.
good. Thank you. I do appreciate it. And I'm done. I think I took way more time, Mr. Chair, by asking that, but thank you.
And I'll ask you to address the kind of the traffic calming and traffic mitigation that's going to happen there. Excuse me, on that road, specifically as it relates to the property to the south. So just, can you explain that? Because that is a long run of road. And I completely understand that. I mean, that is a connection that was going to be there when, you know, the application was put in 2019 and approved to have the have the development to the south. But I would like you to speak to how the traffic calming measures are going to be put in and what that amounts to.
And so at this point in time, Commissioner Sale, it is still being discussed. There are different sorts of things. ACHD doesn't, some things that you think would be no brainers are more difficult to convince ACHD to bite off on, like doing speed bumps, things of that nature. That's not saying they can't be done. You can sometimes talk them into sort of the decorative crosswalks, the colored crosswalks, just having it striped helps a lot there. There can be traffic bulb outs. These are all issues that are still being discussed because it is something that we do know is important. And it's looking at it there and up a little higher just to make sure that we have as much as possible to slow people down through here.
Okay. Commissioner Grace, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman and Elizabeth, just based on the traffic study information you just gave us, can I put that into context to in your experience and history with this project? Is the EasyJet drive the issue that's being kind of that's causing the concern from citizens?
The concern from Chair Commissioner Grace, the concern from citizens in the file is from where it goes south on Titanium out to Victory has been the primary concern. Because we actually held, the development team did hold a second public meeting on this to meet with the neighbors. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like there were representatives or really the people in that retirement community knew much about it, so they could talk about it. But there have been ongoing discussions. So the lion's share of the comments in the staff report are about it going south. There have, of course, been comments from other people, but most of them are going south.
So then is there something developed there that's not reflected on this map that I'm looking at?
Yes,
Okay.
there is. And it's really new, which is the whole area is under development. I don't know if Bill has a better map of it. I don't think I do. That shows that there is a,
Yeah, okay.
that there is a retirement community there. Senior living community.
Okay, thank you.
Any-
Any more questions from the commission? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, shall we start?
We shall. We have no one signed up online.
Real
And-
quick, can we start with, I know this is out of order and we generally don't do this, but can we start with the person that is going to be the spokesman for the senior living center? Sorry if that takes things out of order, but I figured.
It's fine.
Hi, I'm Lori Delaney. I am the assistant manager over at The Point, and I'm here to represent The Point at 3123 South Titanium Avenue.
Okay.
I'm just going to read this. I've not done this before, so I'm extreme novice. We are here to oppose the opening of 3123 South Titanium Avenue as a go-through thoroughfare. This road has been a destination-only road. There is no traffic except for those going to their homes or families coming to visit their loved ones. Opening this street to allow access to a huge residential and business area is going to be detrimental for the safety of our residents. We have the community is divided into, we have a main building. Can't see. We have a main, oops, excuse me. We have a main building and we have 86 residents that live inside the main building. And then Titanium divides the main building from some independent cottages out there. So it literally goes right down through the middle of the building. The residents that live here come over to the community 3 times a day for meals. They also have to pick up their mail in the main building and also have to come to the building for activities throughout the day. And they're provided 7 days a week, pretty much one every hour, hour and a half. Having cars zooming up and down this road is extremely unsafe for these elderly residents. Some have walkers, they are on oxygen and have very poor hearing. To have a large volume of traffic driving through this area is very unsafe. We also have a dog park that's located across from the main building, and many of the residents that live inside also have small pets that they take over there multiple times during the day. In the morning, and just to elaborate a little bit, I literally live in the Sutherland Farm subdivision, and I live on the other side of the fence. So I drive to this building every single morning between 7:30 and 7:50 and 7:30. In the morning, it's dark outside when breakfast is served. These residents will be walking across a busy road in the dark for their first meal of the day or going back home to their homes at night in the dark. The chance of someone getting hit by a car or not hearing a horn honk is a huge safety concern. These people moved here to live in a safe, quiet environment. Opening this road will leave not only people using it to access their homes, but also as a shortcut to avoid the intersection of Victory and Eagle. And all due respect, ma'am, I totally disagree with your numbers because I live there and I see the traffic. It's nuts. There will also be, this will also be used as a shortcut through this area to cut through the new area and pop out on Eagle Road, avoiding the light at the intersection. Also, because of all the traffic in the morning and at 5 o'clock, the lines of traffic are so long that you can't hardly even get into the main entrance. There's a turn lane that goes west on Victory, and then it goes west and then it turns to go south on Eagle Road. That gets so blocked up that you can't, literally, I cannot even get out of Titanium myself to go home because I turn and go east. In the mornings, using this area to drive through to get out onto Victory Road will cause cars waiting to turn east out onto Victory to be stacked up inside our community because they can't get out. This is also unsafe for our residents. I have worked in this area for over 28 years and have driven all over this valley. There is not one senior living community in this whole valley that has a major thoroughfare going right through the middle of it. I asked the city leaders, the commissioners and the chairman, would you feel comfortable placing your parent or a loved one in this area knowing that the street is going to be like a highway? I also challenge all of you involved in this project to come and see the volume of cars that are at this intersection between 7 a.m. and 7:30 and 4:30 to 5:30 p.m. each day. There are other alternate routes to get into this new area. There's a fire road out behind us that has access to come into this new area. There are also areas where the homes were removed that have entrances that could be made in and out of the new development. With the 2 stoplights, the one on Victory and the one on EasyJet in this area, which would make easy access in and out of that new area, because when those lights are red, you can just turn and you can go in and out. It would be very easy. A road could also be put in behind the garage area of our community, which would keep the traffic from blasting through the middle of our residents' homes. We are here and thank you. And we just please ask that you'll consider these other options. Thank you.
Real quick, I got some questions for you. And I'll ask this for the benefit of others that have the same, that are going to have the same concerns. So earlier, Bill had a graphic up there and it actually showed the posting for this. And on that, there's a big sign that's up against the road. And what does that sign say?
It says that this is a go-through road, but I can tell you right now, I have been working at this building since it was a shell, and that sign has not always been up there.
But the sign is just a sign. So when the road goes through, the road is supposed to go through.
Right.
You do realize that ACHD controls the road, not the city of Meridian too.
Right.
Correct?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. And so when the application came through, and I read through the application for the development for the senior living community, and there were several concerns raised by staff, by the council, and by the commission at that point in time about this very thing and about the layout of the property. Part of that was the applicant, which is this business, was supposed to work with ACHD for traffic calming measures and for any kind of traffic mitigation. Did any of that happen?
I have no idea.
Okay. Are there any crosswalks?
No, well,
there-
we have crosswalks. We have a designated area for wheelchairs, but there are no crosswalks.
Okay.
We were told there would be no speed bumps put in, no traffic lights, nothing to help our residents get across the street safely.
Okay. So that's my questions and concerns about this is in 2019, these concerns were brought up and nothing has been done to address them. And now this
Find
street,
that out.
okay, and now this street that has to go through because it is an ACHD road,
Mm,
we're at this impasse.
yeah. Well, it is what it's gonna be. I can assure you that somebody's gonna get run over. And that's really sad.
It is unfortunate,
Mhm.
but I'm reluctant to say that it's the city's fault or ACHD's fault.
I don't know whose fault it is.
Okay.
All I know is it's been very upsetting because we just, in the last few months, found out that the road was for sure going through because the sign got put up. Because there wasn't a sign on that road for a long time.
But again, during the application, that was made very apparent to the owners.
Well, and shame on them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just wanted to make that point for the record that because there is a lot of people on record, on the public record. We read every piece of public testimony that comes in.
Yeah.
And this is the main concern, but I just wanted to make sure that this is something that's,
Yeah.
people understand. This is not something that the city can control. This is something that ACHD controls. And there's not much that we can do about it.
Well, maybe the owners need to get with them and see if there's something they can change. Because
Completely agree.
it's going to be unsafe. Thank you.
Hmm. Madam Clerk?
David Bailey.
Again, David Bailey, Bailey Engineering, 1119 East State Street in Eagle, and representing the owner for some questions. I won't go through the other stuff we had before. Yeah, but I will stand for any questions you have. I do have one comment relating to the road there. And the developer who developed those houses and the apartments that are across the street from them where their facility is, was responsible to do those improvements on that road and was required to make that a public street. And that is noted on the plat that street will be extended in the future. That's on the thing there. What I would suggest is that, and I'd be glad to help if we can, or I'm sure your staff would be glad to help as well, is that the residents there talk to the owner of the facility about improving the conditions for crossing Titanium. I think there's options to do there, right? You can paint a crosswalk at least, right? And you can put in some narrowing in the road in there. There's some things that can be done to help you with this situation. And just to point out, we originally, way back when we first started working on this, we took that street and turned the corner directly into the subdivision to the east. And we're going to leave Titanium out with a cul-de-sac at the north, just so we wouldn't have the through traffic through the site. Your staff and ACHD said, absolutely not. You're connecting all those roads. That's going to happen. So just the point on that, to follow through on that. So other than that, I'd be glad to answer any questions you have about the development from the engineering perspective.
I would ask you the same question that I asked previously to see if there's a more robust answer to kind of the Titanium Way, and I can't remember the name of this little road here, but as far as the traffic calming measures are going to be put in there, can you comment on that, or is really that just? Really
Yeah, we'll do
and I understand that ACHD is like no stop signs, no speed bumps. To me, that's kind of common sense mitigation, but how do you work
We
around
do a
that?
couple that are common, and we've looked at a couple of things on the two of them. The one that we do the most common are called chicanes, where we narrow the street into 24 feet back a curb, and we'll probably do that in two locations. We can do that at the intersection of the road to the east and of our entrance at the south end, and you just bulb out the corners where the sidewalks come. Makes a great place to walk across the street there. They're really close and you can mark that well. And so that's probably what we'll do is bump out the corners of that intersection between Titanium and I don't know, a Publisher to the east there for the first piece. And then to north, we'll probably put a chicane in that curve at the north end of the property to do that. It should really slow down traffic there. It would be the most convenient way. And then we'll mark those crosswalks.
Okay.
Come across there.
Thank you. Commissioners? Okay, thank you much. Madam Clerk?
Mr. Chairman, there is no one. No one else is signed up. I'm sorry.
Anybody else like to come up and testify? Go right ahead, sir.
Yeah, hi, my name is Matthew Riggs, 529 West Fordham in Eagle. And just want to reiterate, I think a lot of the concerns relative to titanium and traffic are really concerns of ours as well, and why we're talking about these mitigation. There's going to be senior citizens in this community, and then there's going to be a lot of families with young kids. So, I think that the way that titanium has been drawn and shown here, gives it a little mitigation, making people, not go straight down north-south. It does have a little turn in there. But we're, working hard with staff, and we'll continue to do so to to try to find anything we can to mitigate, that rush through traffic risk, because as dangerous as that is, at 7 a.m. going to breakfast, last thing we want is a 4-year-old living on our site chasing a soccer ball and having the same thing. So just wanted to note, for the record, that we really are, I think, aligned in a lot of ways about how can we go about mitigating this traffic risk. And, for the record, we'd be more than willing to meet with the property owner to the south and try to coordinate those efforts. So at least it's, the same, picture through and through. I mean, we'll throw things out there, but just wanted to note, that really is as a focal point of ours. I mean, life safety is number one. Last thing we need is anything on our site or from the neighborhood that's an issue. So, traffic will increase with our development here if it moves forward. But, we're really standing by to mitigate the risks associated with that. And we're not unfamiliar with ACHD, and we are quite accustomed to working through these type of things with them and are standing by to do so. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Lorcher?
Ms. Delaney, do you think the owners would work with the developer to come up with a solution that is safe for your community as well as the new? Are they here tonight or no? Are they in state?
Hold on a minute. Why don't you come back up? We're gonna go ahead and ask a bunch of questions. Thank
Sorry.
you. That's okay.
It's just going to be one.
Let's go ahead and have that repeated so it's on the
They're
record.
in Utah.
Oh, they're in Utah.
Yeah.
Do they own other senior centers too, or is this?
This
the
is
only one?
this is a pilot. So they're building others, but this was the first one.
Okay.
So obviously mistakes were made.
All right. Well, thank you for coming up.
Thank you.
My questions are now
Is that
done.
it?
All right, thank you again. Pam, you want to come on up and testify? We'll need your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Bev Montgomery. I live at 2560 South Teddy Avenue, which is in the Sutherland Farm subdivision. I did not plan to speak tonight, but I feel great concern for my neighbors here. And I know that in the morning, I don't have to, because I'm retired, get up and get down EasyJet to get out to Eagle Road. But the folks who live across the street and the subdivision across the way, that time, and my children who do have to go there and get kids to school, have a very difficult time getting out. And just recently I had to get down to St. Luke's Hospital. I did not know that from my place, which is really 2 miles, that it was going to take me 35 minutes. So all of this adds to the congestion that for us is really, really difficult. And we have many children that need to get to school, and we have many young families in Sutherland Farm that need to get to work. And to add this many more people to that mix, and just my concern about the crowded schools that we have. I just want to be noted that it's the quality of life, if you have to go out and get on Eagle Road, is jeopardized. Thank you. Thank you for spending your time here listening to our concerns, and we are greatly concerned. Thank you.
Thank you. There's somebody else? Come on, go ahead and come on up. Yep. Good evening, ma'am. We'll need your name and address for the record, please.
Okay. I'm Jennifer Jenks, Jenks. I live at 3532 East Beamer Court. I am actually on this, can I use this map maybe? So if you have Titanium Way that they're proposing, if you'll go over 2 streets, I am the street called, I'm on the corner of Baystar, which is actually the street that comes from EasyJet. It goes out to EasyJet and out to Victory. So I'm the one that everybody's using right now. Yeah, I would have to side with the residents here. We can't do anything now about our streets, but certainly if we could keep them safer, I would definitely side with that. Having said that, definitely Eagle Road, Victory, EasyJet at 7:30, all of those traffic numbers are they're way low. I go out there all the time to get my daughter to high school, to get my elementary kids to where they need to go. It takes me, where the schools are maybe 5 minutes away, it takes me at least 20 to 30 minutes. Let's see what else. You've got all the high schoolers. First of all, that in those early morning hours, they have to get to high school. They're going down Victory, EasyJet, Eagle Road. So again, all those numbers are very low, and we have lots of not necessarily cognizant drivers who are going to go slow. And so that might be something else to consider. Obviously, ACHD, we've been through this before with our subdivision, with the complexes there on Overland Road and that come between Cloverdale and Eagle. We had the same issues with them. ACHD would not put another entrance out to Cloverdale. And so all of those residents now come through our subdivision and down my street. So I guess that would just be my 2 cents in maybe helping these guys back here. I can't help myself anymore. And just more information, maybe from a different perspective. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you very much. I can speak for myself on the commission. I can't speak for other commissioners, but I think if you live in any part of Meridian right now, we're sympathetic to the fact that traffic is horrible. So, I mean, just this evening, I had to wait through 3 lights southbound on 10 Mile crossing Cherry Lane. That's not normal, generally speaking, but it happens. So I feel your pain for sure. So with that, ma'am, you raised your hand. Would you like to come up? Good evening. We'll need your.
Thank you for listening to us. I live in the point also. I have a cottage that's.
Ma'am,
across the
we'll need your name and address for
Okay.
the record. Thank you.
It's Ritis Skinner. It's RITIS. And I live at 3123 South Titanium Avenue, but I live in a cottage across Titanium. My concern is we have the need for ambulance and fire all the time. If we have another group that densely populated, you're going to have a lot of police and fire coming in there also. And I say the ambulance and the fire truck always come together. So there's a dual situation. So I think what they're saying with their traffic report is way, way low. Plus the fact that to get that large of equipment in there is very difficult. So I think the narrowing of the street's a great idea if it's just passenger traffic. But what about the emergency traffic? You have very limited access to that large group of people. There's the Titanium and clear over to EasyJet. So I see many mornings where the traffic is solid, all Victory and all up and down Eagle. There's absolutely no way that people are not going to see that access and cut off that whole corner, go through Titanium and come out on EasyJet. I just am very concerned for the people that live there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sir, come on up. Good evening, sir. We'll just need your name and address for the record.
Carl Coons is my name. I live at the Point. My address there is apartment N 113. I can appreciate the fact that you're not going to be able to do anything about the highway. But at 96, I'm concerned about my welfare along with all the rest of the older tenants at the Point. So all I can do is ask you to do everything you possibly can to protect our well-being. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Okay. Anybody else like to come up? Ma'am, go right ahead. We'll need your name and address for the record, please. Oh, please speak into the microphone.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Leanne Richardson, 2760 South Proud Way. I'm in the Sutherland Farm.
Okay. Can you pull that a little bit closer to you?
Could stand closer to.
Okay, it'll pull to you too there a little bit. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. My only question is, what I have gotten from this is a wonderful proposal that they have, probably the best that I see anymore. Usually it's 3- and 4-story apartment buildings jammed in, but it's not, you don't control the roads, but you control the building. So I hear, well, we can't do anything about the roads. So where's the standoff here? Do we just continue? I'm naive about the whole thing, that the roads are our issue. We cannot move all of these people, but yet we continue to build these big apartment complexes that impact everybody. So I don't, what's the answer to that? I don't know.
Well, and the best answer I can give you and a statement that I've made in a few applications that have come through is if you're here to talk about the roads, you're at the wrong hearing. ACHD is who owns the roads and for the most part dictate what we can do with them within the city when it comes to a public road like this. So the best answer I can give you is contact ACHD.
Well, it doesn't work too good for you guys, but I'll try.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? All right. Nobody else is signed up. Nobody else is online. Would the applicant like to come back up? I won't forget that this time.
Thank you. Elizabeth Kekaritz, Givens Pursley, 601 Bannock. As expected, we agree there's very little that can be done from the city's perspective about many of these street intersections. If we could go to our very last slide, I just wanted to make a couple of points. First, there is already a second connection onto the development from Victory Road. That's that access easement that's going to go right next to the daycare. It's closer to Eagle Drive. So there is already some access there. It's not considered a real street. It's not included in traffic count numbers, but there is that access over there. So where the manager, I missed her name, I believe it was Miss Delaney something, was Lori Delaney was speaking about it. We already are using that access, which then, especially for the commercial traffic, should keep some of that from going through the titanium area development. I also just wanted to reiterate what Matt Riggs said. He's one of the 2 owners of Barron Properties, and the company is really committed to working with the developer, with the owner of this senior center to try to come up with the traffic calming measures, both on our property, on theirs, to try to make something work, because it really is a big issue throughout. There was a comment made about EasyJet Drive, and that's where, if you go to our very, very last one, all the intersections and roads are continuing to operate at an acceptable level, except for eastbound EasyJet in the morning. eastbound EasyJet coming out at 1 o'clock to turn north onto Eagle Road is not operating acceptably now. It's not operating acceptably in the future. Our development doesn't really have anything to do with it. Those numbers don't change and this intersection doesn't get any worse. There were some recommendations in the traffic study on one of the things where you could get to make everything work better would just be if ACHD did some restriping of that lane and made a dedicated left turn lane heading north out of EasyJet from the east side heading north. So there's just a dedicated left turn lane. All of a sudden, all the wait times get better. Everything improves according to the traffic engineers. And I can appreciate we all have sat in traffic, and especially right now, there's some temporary constriction on Eagle. But the traffic engineers that we use, they do actually have degrees in traffic engineering. They really spend a lot of time doing this. All of these reports are standardized. They all follow the same national standards that are used both here in Idaho and across the country. And for the most part, we all know the feeling of, but this is too long, but they really are out there following these national standards and guidelines when they put these together. And so that's what here was the findings and the mitigations are simply that the only intersection that is really operating at the level F is that EasyJet going east. I think. Yeah, and with that, we would just stand for any questions, any last questions, and ask that you recommend approval of these applications.
Okay, do we have any further questions for the applicant? Commissioner Wheeler, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Elizabeth, just a question here. So you're talking about some traffic calming measures and trying to work on some things like that. And there was a comment about making the roads narrow a little bit and bringing back up. I don't know the level of aggressiveness for traffic calming measures. I'm not a civil engineer, but would your client look at like possibly even like roundabouting or making the road more serpentine? I know that the roads we don't control, but I'm just saying other sort of more aggressive measures on slowing down traffic there.
I think that they would consider that, but I think that they would really be more looking at the more of the traffic bulb outs, because when you do have those going on any street, like for instance, if you're in, and I don't know where there are so many here in Meridian, but in like the north end of Boise, it really slows things down. Like you think you're moving along and you really do come to this you really definitely slow down a lot. And the crosswalks make it really obvious that there's kids there, there's pedestrians there, there's someone standing there who's trying to cross the street.
I can just tell you that, so just indulge me for a second. My house is almost seen on this map here. So I've lived here for 17 years on this area, and I've dealt with this here a lot. I'm reading right here where it says there's 26 crashes, 15 and 1 fatality. And that fatality was a schoolmate of my son's, Mason, whose red marked lines is right there at level 1. That's where he died. I have a very, very dear friend, got hit by a vehicle, broke his scapula. Where if there's a nurse in the room, you know, the break a scapula is near impossible. That's the traffic issue we're dealing with here. It's at that level. And I've avoided, I don't know how many accidents by people almost pulling out in front of me, getting me boxed in up and down this road. And I'm just trying to go home and see my kids. It's that level. And then you've got the traffic between 7:30 and 8 before school starts. This is any opening space. It is zipping in and out. So then the high schoolers can turn to go to Mountain View using the back roads. And then it's just a race to get back there to hit their Dutch Bros or human being and then go into school. This is the normal traffic thing, backs up for 10 minutes to get to the interstate. That's just what it is. That's the concern that's kind of being brought here. And the traffic mitigation coming through Titanium they're going to funnel that way. And they're going to try to cut off the intersection that's right there on the traffic congestion because it backs up a half a mile to 3/4 of a mile either direction at the peak times. And there's just a lot of pressure and tension all the whole way. So anything you guys can do in order to help mitigate that, anything you can do to help any sort of traffic calminess with those things in mind to the strongest amount means a lot on that for everybody that's been living in this area for a hot minute.
Thank you, Commissioner Wheeler. We will definitely take that to heart. I know both the owners are here and they're listening and they've been speaking as well.
Thank you.
Commissioners? Nothing further? Right, thank you very much. Appreciate that. And with that, I will take a motion to close the public hearing for file number H 2022-0066.
Moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to close the public hearing for file number H 2022-0066. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Who would like to go first? Commissioner Warcha? Yep.
Well, if anything that this hearing has provided is an open dialogue between the owners of the development and the representatives, the community of the senior living, to be able to come up with some solutions so that your community is safe and that they provide be good neighbors. And so as city volunteers, we don't have a voice with ACHD, but, or we don't have any decision makings with ACHD. But it sounds like between the owners of the proposed development and the owners of your community, I think efforts can be made to make it work for everyone. Is it perfect? No. Titanium was always planned on being a through street. And as Commissioner Seal said in the application for when your community was developed, it was addressed at that time. So as a body that makes recommendations, it's hard for us to evaluate. We need to evaluate the entire project. Is it in the best interest of the city, but also take caring of our community at the same time? I worry that this is a very nice development and they're very conscious about how they want it to look and the way it happens. If we went to decline it and the city went to decline it, what happens next? Like, would it be 3-story apartment buildings? Because those are approved there too. And the example that came up a couple months ago was off of Chinden. There was a storage facility being proposed on Chinden between, I think, Black Cat and 10 Mile. And then Rock Harbor Church came in and it's like this huge 3-story building. So you sometimes have to be careful of what we wish for, because if it's not this development, it's going to be another one. And it may be owners that, aren't as caring that want to work with you. So in that respect, I would be inclined to approve this development because there is now a mechanism and a conversation between the owners of the development and hopefully representatives of your community that you'll come to a conclusion and a solution that everybody becomes safe.
Very well said. Commissioners?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Smith, go ahead.
Thank you. First off, I want to say thanks for covering pretty much every question I had. Every time I thought I was about to ask a question, it beat me to it. So thank you for that. As I'm recovering from whatever I have, saving my voice, which I appreciate. Just a couple of thoughts. I echo pretty much everything that's been said. I also have the privilege to be on the Transportation Commission for the city. And so for the developer, for the applicant, for the community, for the representative of the senior center, just some thoughts about potential, things that can benefit going forward. ACHD, they have some really smart people who work there. I think you can talk to a lot of people who serve on the Transportation Commission who might have had a certain opinion about ACHD going in, and having worked with ACHD over time while we have our disagreements. There are some brilliant people working there who really care. about the community. And to that end, they are, anytime someone's come to us with complaints about cut through traffic, about cut through speeding and things like that, ACHD is willing to do speed studies and to do cut through studies. And so that's something that, and they tell us, hey, we don't think this is going to be a lot of cut through traffic as much as the residents complain it is. And sure enough, I personally tend to doubt them quite a lot. And usually it comes back, hey, the cut through traffic's really hardly a percent of what people think it is. They think it's cut through traffic. They think it's people trying to get around an intersection. And often it's actually people living there who are speeding, who are cutting through, et cetera. So I do understand the concern of cut through traffic, especially at such a busy intersection. I do think that tends to be a concern that we may rely too much on. But if that does really become an issue, you have, while ACHD controls those things, you do have a voice and advocates in the city government that are always willing to work as a liaison there. So I think, there are a lot of issues here around transportation. I also want to talk about, the funding mechanisms. There were some mentions of schools and of roads. The impact fees, unfortunately, in the state of Idaho, fortunately or unfortunately, depending on who you ask, is funded to where you need development to pay for the things, the things that are impacted by that development. We don't get funding for schools unless we develop the things that are going to necessitate more schools. So because of that, there are some things that I some genuine concerns. But like you said, Mr. Chair, they're not necessarily things that this commission can control, or even that the city can control. They belong at ACHD or even with a state legislature. So I'm empathetic to those things, but I genuinely think this, especially with a developer owner, with one with a solid track record, who clearly cares about the community, cares about the area. I think this is for all the splotches and concerns. I think this is a great development. I think this is something that I would love. If I didn't already have a home, I would love to live there. I think this is a great place, and it looks beautiful, and it looks like it should help foster a real sense of community with the commercial aspect on it as well. So I wholeheartedly support this. I understand the concerns, and I hope that there are things that the existing development owners can do to work with ACHD and work with the applicant to ameliorate that concern on the southbound traffic. But I think those that's a significant responsibility of the current development of the Inglewood property has kind of neglected, it appears. So with that, I wholeheartedly support this. I'm not going to make a motion as I don't have the specific, the ever so helpful specific language, but I wholeheartedly support and would gladly, second when it comes to that.
Thank you. Yeah, and I'm on same page with that, so I won't beat it too much to death here. Bill did put a nice graphic on the screen that shows the bulb outs that we've kind of been talking about a little bit. So that's why that's up on the screen. Hopefully that's why it's on the screen. But that's just a good illustration of what that looks like and how it works for people to take a look at. So yeah, just to get back to talking about the application itself. Again, I do appreciate that this is, it's classified multifamily, but it's not, 3-story apartment buildings or a whole bunch of fourplexes all just mashed together with very little character. So a lot of the things, this was kind of touched on a little bit earlier, but a lot of the things that we have to kind of go over and over and over with other applicants, like, please, limit the height of the buildings on the periphery, things like that. The street signage, there's just a lot of things that are repetitive in other applicants that we don't have to deal with on this. So it's kind of hard to complain about it. I do like the I have a son in the valley that I'd love if he lived in one of these places. So, I mean, it's kind of tailored for his lifestyle for sure. So, you know, and I'm glad to see things like that are kind of coming back into Meridian. So he lives in Boise now because Meridian just got too expensive, which is hard to say sometimes, but that's the way it is. So as far as this development, I like it. I like you know, I wish there was something we could do about titanium, you know, a little bit more, but I think that's going to be taken care of as we move down the road with it. So glad to see there's a commercial element to it. Kind of wish that there were live work because I really like that. I just support the entrepreneurial lifestyle and hope that there's more of that comes into the Meridian area. We have several businesses in the area that are very, very successful that started, you know, literally in somebody's apartment or in, you know, Sensi's case in a storage container. So, I'd like to see more of that as it comes in. You know, glad to see the amenities there. I do like the community gardens as well. I wish there were more of those. Hopefully they continue to get used and it's not just something that's a fad. So as you know, people start to kind of settle into a place, hopefully they make more use of that. And with that, I am in support of this. Commissioner Wheeler, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this density on this parcel could be a lot more. And there could be a lot bigger buildings, a lot more industrial looking like buildings all the way around in here for the size of this, for sure. I know that one of the struggles that have always been with developing this piece of dirt is this cut through with titanium all the way through, because you couldn't just put in, you know, 7 3-story, you know, 24 unit, put in something that could be double the size of this. How many doors that are here. That's something that's always been struggled for, why this dirt has never been developed and everything else around it seems to have been. So to come up with a plan that can work within the confines of everything from right-of-way takes to easements to overhead power lines to soils to, you know, neighbors and cut through streets and everything like this, and say, this is what works for me on the risk reward side is actually nice to see something put forward like this. I just because of what I experienced, and maybe it's just too personal, it just seems like there will be just there'll be more traffic that will that'll be here from it, but it's a whole lot less than what could be here on other things. I would hope to see more commercial space to help mitigate some of that traffic at those early morning hour commute times, office spaces, not really incubator spaces. That's a different thing altogether, but some of these little light office spaces, but those are also really hard to lease up. So I understand that on the developer side. If we can have some very strong assurances that they'll work with the owner to the south and to do everything they can to help out with traffic calming measures. It's something that I could give a nod for, but there's just a lot more traffic here, and I don't know how that's going to affect everything up and down Eagle Road, and I know it's going to back it up even more on Victory. Those are just my concerns and what that happens with impatience on drivers. That's my biggest concern.
Commissioner Rivera, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say that I agree with all my fellow, you know, commissioners here and all them, you know, I appreciate everybody that's came up today and testified, and thank you for doing that. And it's great to see that everybody has the best interest for their community and you know, for the right way of life for everybody to be safe. But I also applaud the developer for being sensitive and taking time to try to accommodate as much as possible and work with the community. We don't see that every time in every application. So that's great to see too. And I have full faith that, you know, they'll have conversations with the owner. I wish the owner would have been present here today with the, but I have full faith that something will be worked out for the safety of everybody. So, but with all that being said, I will look forward to, approving this project. But thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Motion? I'm open for that. Yep, and please remember that there are other things that Bill covered in here if you're going to do a motion. Thank you. Gotcha.
It's not as easy as it looks.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
Bill, can you refresh me, please?
Absolutely, happy to. So get to my notes here real quick. So as I mentioned to you, the applicant wants some flexibility to get under construction, get building permits before final plat approval. And that was DA provision number, I called it C. I'm gonna call it DA provision C. I had suggested that they change that final plat shall be recorded prior to the issuance of the first occupancy permit for any structure within this development, and striking the building permit. So replacing building permits with occupancy. Item 2 on the private streets, I think probably keep with staff's recommendation, since I am empowered by the UDC to strike some of that condition. I am going to go with the applicant and just to have a clear record and let them know that because there is no private street connection to Eagle Road, that alternative compliance is not required for that. So I did give them an either or, so I will be striking that portion of the condition as it's not really relevant here. And then the last condition is Public Works Condition 2.9. And that's essentially how it's written on the, I don't think you have to say it word for word, just say as proposed by the applicant. And then I can make sure that that gets modified as we transition to city council.
Can we go back to the first one? So is just striking building permits on the preliminary plat?
Well, no, it's a DA provision C, and it says, it's basically the way it's worded now, the applicant has to record a final plat prior to getting building permits. And with this developer and any multifamily development, we usually allow them to get under construction and then record, the plat has to be done prior to getting occupancy. So that's what we're changing it. They don't have to record the plat to get building permits. They just need to have it done prior to getting occupancy for the first structure.
A DA provision to get
To record the plat prior to
Record
the
plat.
first certificate of occupancy.
before.
Yep.
Okay.
And I would recommend some good language in there as far as working with the owner of the property to the south, as well as HEHD to implement traffic calming and mitigation. If it were me that was making. Luckily, I don't have to do those anymore.
Second. Anything else? All right, I think I got it.
Go for it.
Okay. After considering all staff, applicant, and public testimony, I move to recommend approval to City Council for file number H 2022-0066 as presented in the staff report for the hearing date of April 6th with the following recommendations. A DA provision to record before the certificate of occupancy. Alternative compliance is not required. Item number 2.9, Public Works as proposed by the applicant. And the current developer work with the owner to the property to the south to come up with the best case scenario for the safety of the current community and future development.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded to approve file number H 2022-0066 with their aforementioned modifications. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Do we get that? Commissioner Wheeler?
Commissioner Wheeler.
Okay. And with that, it passes. Thank you very much. And if there's no other business,
Mr. Chair, move we adjourn.
Second.
been moved and seconded that we adjourn. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.